All right, everybody, we are live. Couple of subjects I want to touch on, conversations that I see people having. Just a couple of my thoughts on some of these subjects. One of the more pressing subjects, uh, belts. The problem that some people think they pose in the sport of boxing and would be solutions. I've seen a lot of people say things like, alphabet titles, they should get rid of them. They don't mean what they used to mean, and they're not necessary anymore. And this is on the heels. I was Goody Virtuoso, was Goody Jack, oh Dirty Toby, Derek, Ernest Toby. What it do? Don was good. I've seen people say things like they should get rid of the belts. And this is what happens when emotional people try to be edgy and come up with edgy solutions that are not realistic towards solving problems. Because if you got rid of the belts, what isn't immediately obvious on the surface is the belts are a common denominator for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of fighters all around the world that need a common ground. They need a common ground to compete. They need a common ground and a common goal in order to face each other, because if they don't have a common ground, they're not going to fight. Teofimo Lopez fought Vasyl Lomachenko for his belts, yes, also his status. There are other things that fighters are fighting for besides just belts, but the common thread, the ties that bind, are actually the alphabet titles themselves. It is the belts. The belts are what bring all these different fighters from around the world together. And if your solution to boxing's problems, some of which aren't even, some of which are not actually caused by the belts themselves, if you removed that hierarchy and that system, that infrastructure, what would you put in its place? Because you'd have to put something in its place. You would need a common ground for fighters in Russia and fighters in America and fighters in Mexico and South America and Central America and fighters in Africa. You would need a common ground to bring them together. And if the belts do one thing, it's that. They do bring the fighters together. Now, it's not a perfect system by any stretch of the imagination, but that is one of the essential functions that these alphabet titles perform. They actually give all these different fighters a common ground, a common goal, and something to shoot for. And the idea is that the top talent and the top fighters will permeate to the top in competition through combat by fighting for these belts. This has become a hot topic on the heels of Ryan Garcia saying that, he doesn't need a belt and belts don't matter anymore. Belts aren't important. And I've talked about why he said that many times, that's bullshit. That's just bullshit. You're only saying that so that you don't have to fight the Devin Haney's and the Josh Taylors of the world. You're only saying that because you don't want the responsibilities that come with being a champion, that it's not enough to just win a belt. You have to keep it after that. There's a certain level of expectation that a champion will defend his title, and you don't want to be pinned down by mandates. You don't want anybody telling you what to do. You don't want anybody putting you in an uncomfortable situation, so you don't want belts. That's what that really is. It has nothing to do with not needing belts anymore. The sport needs belts because if there are no belts and it doesn't have that infrastructure, it doesn't have that pecking order, what the hell kind of system is going to be put in place? What's going to bring all these fighters together? Because something has to. Jesse Quesada says, what's good, EJ? Salute from Mr. LA. Pico Rivera, ya tú sabes, manín. Ya tú sabes. If not for the alphabet titles, if not for belts, fighters like Errol Spence would never get to become what they became, because a big part of the reason that he went on to be a successful welterweight in his division is because of a mandate that came down from the IBF, forcing Kell Brook, a known fighter, a known welterweight, and a long-reigning champion. He reigned as IBF champion for approximately 3 years, maybe a little more than that, before he fought Errol Spence Jr. A big part of the reason that he was able to showcase his skills and showcase what he could do against a quality fighter that was known to be a quality fighter was because of the alphabets. It was because of a mandate from the IBF that told Kell Brook, you're either going to fight this guy or you're going to give him your belt. And that's a certain level of shaming in a way that, dude, do you really want people to see you surrender the title that you won from Sean Porter to this guy? Is that what you want? Or would you rather fight to keep it? Would you rather defend it? There's still there's still some semblance of the old way of thinking, in mandates like that. When a fighter like Anthony Joshua decides that I'm not going to just surrender my WBO to Alexander Usyk, I'm going to fight to keep it. Win, lose, or fall, I'm going to fight to keep it. And that's why when I hear guys say these things about the belts, I'm like, well, how the fuck else would a fight like that have happened if not for the belts, that common ground, and the mandates that make these fights happen? I know myself that the system isn't perfect. It's far from perfect. That these alphabet organizations don't always do their job. But people are confusing the alphabets not doing their job sometimes to not needing them altogether. And that's just silly, because any cash cow, and I said this yesterday in a discussion that I was having on Twitter, any cash cow that ever became a cash cow, any marquee fighter that ever went on to become the face of boxing, as it were, they were a champion first. That's the common denominator between all these different champions from all these different eras of boxing that go all the way back to John L. Sullivan. The title means something. The title matters. It's not just, oh yeah, it's just prize fighting. No, it isn't just prize fighting. It's not just that, because you could get any two guys to fight for a prize. This is different. This is actually an infrastructure that it gives this worldwide sport, because that's what boxing is. Boxing is a worldwide sport. When you have fighters from Russia and the UK and all these other different parts of the world, you need a common ground to bring them all together, because how the fuck else are you going to bring them all together? You say, let's throw out the WBA, let's throw out the WBC, let's throw out all the alphabets that exist today and let's start over. Well, you're going to end up right back where you started if you do that. The truth is, it's not that the sport doesn't need the alphabets. It's that the alphabets need to do their job. They need to do a better job than the job that they've been doing. But it's not that the sport doesn't need them. Yeah, the sport actually does need them, because how else could you get a fighter in Russia and a fighter in America, or a bunch of fighters in Russia, a bunch of fighters in the UK, a bunch of fighters in America, South America, Central America, Africa? How could you get all these fighters to come to the table, so to speak, to have a common ground without something to fight for? How would you do that? The belts is what brings them together. The belts is literally what brings all these different fighters together, all right? How will you know who's the... Exactly. That's the same argument that I made, Sawab. That how would you be able to distinguish the prospects from the contenders from the champions, and the champions from the all-time greats? How would you differentiate one from the other if you don't have a system? If you're saying that this system is so broken that we need to do away with it, okay, let's do that. Hey, genius, what are you going to put in its place? What are you going to put in its place that's going to bring fighters from Africa, fighters from Russia, fighters from the UK, Scotland, Ireland, fighters from fucking all over the fucking world? What are you going to put in its place if you do away with the current infrastructure? What are you going to put in its place to bring them all together? And if you can't bring them all together, guess what? The best don't fight the best at all. At all. There's no system. With Keith at number 1, WBC mean no Spence versus Bud fight? Does that open a Bud fight versus Ennis or Virgil via the WBO rankings? Also, where does Super Bad land? All right, I'll answer that question. As far as the Thurman stuff, I already did a video on that I uploaded, but I will say that Jaron Boots Ennis is not in line for Terrence Crawford. He's not. He's actually in line for Errol Spence Jr. He's literally not just the number 1 contender by way of the IBF, but he is the mandatory challenger. So if we're saying, okay, there's no Crawford versus Spence happening, the guy that Jaron Ennis is supposed to fight is Errol Spence. That's his mandatory challenger. Also a Montestanionis, that's his other mandatory challenger. So if by some chance things fall apart and Crawford and Spence don't fight, well, that's what's supposed to happen next. That's what's supposed to happen. As far as Sinicia Superbad Estrada, I'm gonna say this. I mean, I could tell you all the stuff I know, but I'd rather people be surprised. I just don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable saying, like, if you hit me on Twitter, I'll tell you. If you hit me on Twitter, because I don't want to just put it out there in a recording that somebody could play back and then, her team find out and they decide they want to beat the shit out of me. I don't want no problems, man. It's super bad out here. People get beat up all the time. You know what I mean?
What's the difference if you say it on Twitter?
Because I could hide the shit.
They can still screenshot it.
I'm not fucking posting it for people to see it. I would answer the question in the direct message.
So somebody can still save it or take a picture of it.
All right, dog. Anyway, the whole argument that the sport of boxing doesn't need belts is a flawed argument and a lazy argument that tends to come from emotional people that are trying to be edgy. They get caught up in the moment, swept up in the hype of fighters like Ryan Garcia, and swept up in the hype of fighters like Gervonta Davis, as if those fighters are bigger than the sport when they're not the biggest draws in the sport now. There's plenty of guys that outsell them, but they get caught up in the hurricane and the hype of these fighters, thinking that because they don't fight for belts that it's not necessary. When Gervonta Davis did fight for a belt at least 2 times, and he's currently in possession of a belt, a baby belt, a secondary title, but he still has one, because if he doesn't, you can't call him a champion of any kind. You can't bill his fights as championship fights. The promoters, they don't get to call him a 3-division anything if he's not in possession of a title. So where casual fans and slack-jawed gawkers and guys who want to be edgy might think that the sport doesn't need belts, no, it actually does, because the belts are the common ground that bring all these fighters together. That's the common ground. It doesn't just happen overnight to where, Ryan fights Gervonta and he just becomes the face of boxing. No, it's never been that way, and it's not about to be that way. Like, it's not. I don't know why anybody would think that. Those 2 guys aren't the biggest draws in boxing. There's plenty of fighters that generate more revenue than they do, and they have belts. They have belts. What are you essentially saying? That you're averse to Ryan fighting Devin Haney? That you're averse to Gervonta Davis fighting Devin Haney because the belts have no meaning? That you're averse to Gervonta fighting Josh Taylor, Ryan fighting Josh Taylor? Or is it that you're just a fanboy, a bunch of fanboys, that are really making excuses for the inadequacies of the fighters that you idolize? Because that's what I see. When you abide by that, you're just making excuses for Ryan not to fight Devin. That's all you're doing. The same way he's making excuses, you fall in line with that way of thinking because you're a sheep. You're a follower. You're not even thinking about what you're saying. You can't have critical thinking skills when you jump to the conclusion that boxing doesn't need belts, when you know that the reason a lot of these fights happen and what makes a lot of these fights come, just all of it come together, it actually is the belts. Errol would have never got an IB. Errol wouldn't have went on to fight a fighter that was known if not for the leverage he had as a mandatory challenger. And because Kell Brook didn't want to suffer the shame of surrendering what he earned, that's what made that fight happen. The belt. The belt. I'm not a Matchroom shill. I just like they products. That's all. I'm not a Matchroom shill. Like, people don't think about what they say. You know what I mean? Before y'all join, let me just finish the monologue a little bit. People don't think about what they say. Shout out to Drew. Belts matter, and we on code for Jermel and off code because Tank don't need. Exactly. People are averse to Ryan Tank losing to Devin. That's exactly what it is, Avo. I'm glad you said it, because that's really what they're running from. That's what they're running from. They don't want to see their favorite fighter catch a L, and the thought of that, it bothers them. When it's like, dog, you're not a boxing fan if that's how your mind works, because the whole reason to watch this goddamn sport is to see people fight. If you reach a point to where you don't want to see people fight, then why are you even watching? Why are you even watching? You say that belts don't matter because you heard Ryan say that. That's why these guys say, you heard Ryan say that. And you see that Gervonta is ducking whole weight classes, so you start thinking, yeah, belts don't matter. That's what you start thinking. Don't you want to see Gervonta fight these people? You don't want to see that. It's silliness, man. It's pure silliness. The truth is that for as much as people complain about the belts, the sport would not even be a sport of any kind without the belts. It wouldn't. There's always a championship in every sport. In the NFL, it's the Heisman Trophy. What is it in the NFL? It's the Heisman. No, the Heisman is the NHL, right?
College.
Right. The Heisman is college football. But every sport has its playoffs. Every sport has its trophy. You know, the NBA, World Cup, all that shit, the World Series, the Super Bowl, the fucking FIFA shit. Every sport has its own version of that. And if you take that away from boxing, then what the fuck makes it a sport?
Just for example, Jules, Muhammad Ali, when he fought Foreman, the main thing was, can he become heavyweight champ after beating this monster? And that belt just sold for $6 million at auction.
Bruh, but let the Burt Sugars of Twitter tell it, boxing don't need belts. Let the Burt Sugars of Twitter. It's like, yo, I saw that conversation, and Drew saw the conversation. I think it was either Drew or Eson.
I was on the thread because I was talking to Ezra. Yeah, Ezra be wilding. He be wilding.
Yeah, I'm like, I read that shit, and I'm like, yo, this dude don't know what the fuck he talking about, because if you took away the belts, it wouldn't be a sport no more. There is no sport without a common ground for the players to play. Like you could, like he said some shit like trophies, bro. Everything in sports is trophies, bro. What the fuck are you talking about? I'm gonna let Eson champ the shit for a minute. Eson, just give me the lay of the land and give everybody the lay of the land and describe the conversation.
Okay, so basically Ezra
done fucking kill Eson, bro. He fucking disappeared, bro.
You don't hear me?
I can hear you now.
Ezra's telepathy.
You going in and out, Eson.
Fuck, hold on.
You got that boo-boo connection.
How about now?
Get off that McDonald's walk-out, Eson.
Hey, Drew, you're fucked up for that one.
Eson. I one at a time. I go ahead, Eson.
I think Eson has been
beautiful point, Eson.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself.
No,
really
Ezra is currently.
Now I can hear you. Can you,
bro?
You good?
I don't know why he keeps going in and out. How about now?
All right, now. All right, let me read the super chat. Shout out to Ivo.
That's what she said.
Ivo says, cut the middleman out and give everyone a belt. Well, that's what they believe is going on, you understand. But what this current situation shows is that, no, winning a belt is not as easy as people make it out.
Ryan doesn't even want to try to go for a belt. That's literally the reason that Ryan doesn't like these. Belts don't matter. Like Devin said, I was the email champ before, and now that I have the belts, they don't matter. Ryan was so quick to call out George Kambosos. Why wasn't he calling out Teofimo when Teofimo had the belts? Why isn't he calling out?
Let me make this point. Let me make this point. For a long time, boxing. Not just boxing fans, and I hate to say this, most people are stupid. I can't put an exact percentage. They are, though, and you know this, Drew. Like everybody on this panel is a critical thinker. Everybody on this panel is smart, and I can make that inference because I've spoken to these people before, and I know that they don't actually need me to tell them anything. They think for themselves, and most people are not like that. And I'm telling you, just pay attention. Most people are fucking idiots. So you hear a kid that is so obviously avoiding a fight say that belts don't matter, and you just go with it. You don't think about it. You don't think about, well, how does that make sense that belts don't matter? Is it that belts don't matter, or is it that you don't want to risk fighting for one? Is that what it is? Because that's more likely than belts not mattering. When the cash cow of boxing, who can buy and sell you any old day of the week, when he's fighting for belts, who the fuck are you to say that belts don't matter? When Floyd Mayweather himself says that, yeah, there's a lot of belts in boxing, but you know what he also said? He said Ryan needs to accomplish something before he talks about fighters like Canelo.
Hey, Julius, listen. These guys he's mentioning, Ryan, Tank. Funny enough, these are the two guys who run around holding belts that aren't real world titles. Ryan reps that interim belt. Davis reps the Reggie belts. He literally is marketed as a multi-divisional champion. Why? Because in sports, accolades matter, trophies matter. Like I said on the thread, you can tell a guy is not athletic or doesn't have any competitive spirit if you do any kind of sport and you get a trophy for it, that shit makes you proud, and it fucking
Yeah.
matters. That represents your hard work, literally.
And to
Besides
add
the
to
push.
that, to what you're saying, add to that, they're trying to sell this fight to a casual audience. Okay, they got their fan bases. Their fan bases are going to support. But then you're asking the casual audience member to buy this fight that has not even happened, and they're not the two best guys in the division. They're not even champions. And people are going to be like, who are these guys? They're not the best.
Well, let's say this, Drew, right? Because they have what makes their situation unique is they both have niche audiences. But niche success is kind of like the Island Boys, to where they made all that money off of going viral, not realizing that, yeah, you're going viral, but you have no longevity. People don't actually like your music. You know, what they're looking at is how fucking stupid you look. But you got to make some money off of how stupid you look, but that's short-lived. And that kind of applies to Gervonta and Ryan, that, yeah, you can make a bit of money fighting each other, but are you guys actually going to fight each other this year?
And that goes to my point to ask you this. You're like, when that Tyson Fury Dillian White came out, okay, we knew the UK was going to support most of it. They over here, Ryan and Tank, they need a substantial amount of us and the casual fan to buy this fight, to give them the money that they want to even take the fight.
Yeah. I mean, and it's weird, and you know that these are new boxing fans. Like, you're not going to tell me that you was up late watching Chavez beat the shit out of Camacho and you saying stupid shit like that. Like, that's how I know anybody that say that, you must be new. Because one of the most fun parts of boxing is the history of boxing, because it has rich history in many different ways. There's many great stories in the history of boxing. And you're not going to convince me that you've been watching boxing since the days of Chavez and Camacho saying goofy shit like that. So you essentially want to do away with one of the things that makes boxing such an appealing sport, the fucking lineage and the history of the sport, because Ryan Garcia told you that belts don't matter.
Well, also it fits into their business plan, because if the belts don't matter, then that means Ryan can get away with not pursuing Devin Haney, and then Tank can get away with fighting the first couple of henchmen from the Bloodsport Kumite. So all these all these cans are then justified because, hey, the belts don't matter. Literally, like.
I agree, because what they want to do is they want to delineate the line between good fighters and great fighters and elite fighters. They want you to think of Rolly Romero as being on par with a Richard Commey. No, Richard Commey was a champion, bro. He beat good fighters, all right? He beat good fighters. Loma was a champion. He beat good fighters. He's a great fighter. And they want to delineate that line so that you can't shame Ryan and so that you can't shame Gervonta for taking the path of least resistance. That's what it's all about. That, oh, well, nobody's good if they ain't got a belt, or the trophies don't. Bro, in what fucking sport have you ever heard of that trophies don't matter?
Julius.
And they have the problem of this, Jules. It'd be different if the top guys at the rates were foreigners. You got Devin Haney and Shakur. They're American. That fucks the whole shit up.
Yep. Now go ahead, Leo.
Julius. People don't want to talk about the belts. They want to talk about the money, like what you bring to the table. Okay, let's say Gervonta Davis goes to the WBA and demands a mandatory shot for the WBA. Let's say he does that, and the WBA says, okay, it's an 80-20 in favor of Gervonta Davis. And Devin Haney says, fuck this split, fuck Paco Bericel, I'm going to drop the belt.
Mm-hmm.
At least you can do that. But you are not going to do that, because even if you try to fuck Devin Haney might still take the split.
Yeah.
Because he already did that with
George Kambosos.
Yeah. So the belts gives a way to get the fights, demand the fights.
Yeah.
It's not a straight line, but if you have a secondary title, you can ask for a mandatory position for the real title to fight the guy that holds the real belt. But
That's how Errol Spence. That's how Errol Spence. And I love to bring him up because it just so happens that a lot of these guys seem to love Errol Spence, right? Well, coincidentally, a big part of the reason that Errol Spence, the launch pad for Errol Spence, was beating Kell Brook. And how did he get Kell Brook in the ring? He was his mandatory for his belt. Kell could have said, "Fuck this belt," and I'm out, and he would have got a vacant title. And that's not the same as beating the shit out of Kell Brook. That's not the same as forcing him to fight and beating the shit out of him and taking his belt. So when I say that belts matter, that's a perfect example. Who the fuck else wanted to fight Errol? Keith didn't want to fight Errol. Danny didn't want to fight Errol. Manny didn't give a fuck about him at the time. The only reason he got that launch pad to be like, wow, this is a really good fighter, is because the belts were the common ground between him and Kell Brook. If not for that, he don't get the fight. If not for the order, you think Kell Brook, after that ass whooping, you think he wanted to fight Errol? Fuck out of here, B. Rada of the Storm says, as a boxing fan, we know the bullshit. Ryan said it's nonsense, but casual fans new to the sport actually believe him and will cause the belt to lose its meaning. When in reality, look, a lot of emphasis is put on the casual fan, right? And it's true that Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia is for the casuals. That's not for the hardcores. But they got to actually fight for the casuals to even come. And I can't stress this enough. Are they about to fight? Does anybody know? What's the ETA?
Ezra said when they do fight.
I got the ETA. I got it. Hold on, I got the ETA. No, it's about to happen about 2025, I believe, maybe 2027. That's my bad, bro. Ryan said that he wants to fight at 140, so 2028. Tank's gonna be in a Zimmer frame, by the time the fight happens and everything. But it's what it is. Oh, also, they're starting to shift the narrative a bit. It's not that the belts don't matter. Devin is a boring ass fighter. Thoughts?
Oh, I mean, let me say this, right? Let me say this because there's truth in there and it's a lie in there, right? One, Devin being a boring fighter is not why you don't want to fight him. Even if some people do think he's boring, that's not why you don't want to fight him. It's because he'll fucking beat you. That's why you don't want to fight him. He could be boring. A lot of motherfuckers is boring. Lara, any old day of the week, is a boring motherfucker. That ain't stopped Jared Hurd from beating the shit out of him. I ain't stop him. That ain't stopped Brian Castano from mauling him. So it's not because he's boring. It's because boring or not, he will UD you. And you know that. So you're not going to take that chance with him. It got to be worth your while. That's why you rather fight Gervonta. He'll fuck around and knock you out. Fuck around.
And the funny thing about they say Devin's boring, that's so off code. And they like to attribute it to being
off code.
It is, because then they'll say Hispanic fight fans are the only ones that say that about slick fighters.
Man, look.
But now
being real, I done seen a lot of different motherfuckers. Look, it's like I understand where they coming from because pure boxers tend to be boring. That's not exclusive to Devin. Most pure boxers are actually pretty fucking boring. I'll tell you that myself. They could be really boring depending on who they got to fight. If it's a pressure fighter, then it tends to be a good fight because the pressure fighter force him to fight, force him to move. Better still, Devin being boring ain't why Gervonta don't want to fight him. Devin being boring ain't why Ryan don't want to fight him. It's because they scared they're going to lose.
Nah, you know what's funny about that too? Because I heard this from like a YouTube channel first. I'll just say it was Punch Drunk Boxing. But like I heard it from him first, and I was thinking, yeah, I don't care, because he put not one, not two, but like 7 videos on that shit. I'm like, bruh, come on. And it's like, okay, Devin's boring, cool, right? So you gonna tell me Tio was boring too? What about Lom? Was he the most boring man in history? Because those dudes also could not get that fight for their lives. And it's like, and I'm hearing it from more people now that's saying like, the reason Devin's not getting the fight is because he like puts the entire crowd to sleep. And it's just bullshit to me. I'm like hearing this so often now, including the belt shit. I'm like, damn, like I didn't think I'd actually be saying this, because a while ago I actually used to disagree with this notion completely. Devin might actually be the boogeyman of that weight class now. Like, that's insane.
Let me say this. Devin is the boogeyman of that weight class because, look, it's simple. You cool with fighting Diaz, bro. You cool with fighting Fortuna. You cool with fighting Rolly. You cool with fighting Isaac Cruz. but you not cool fighting him. And what you gonna tell me that they better fighters than him? No, they not. We all know that. No, they not. You bullshitting. The real reason you don't want nothing to do with this kid, he is the boogeyman. He's scaring y'all not to fight. He done got every belt. So now you got to try to convince the whole boxing world that winning belts don't matter. And that shit not going to work. Because we going to see who you fight while you don't fight Ryan. Ryan, we going to see who you fight while you don't fight Javante. It better be somebody good.
Okay, that was my point before. Being boring, and if you are boring and you cannot sell, that's translate to money and the pay cut. Because
Yeah.
if you're boring, you're not gonna get a big payday because you don't bring access to the table, to the event. So at least you can do is call your promoter and lowball the motherfucker, and let's see what happens. But
Exactly.
they did that. They
Oh,
did.
You already know
they
the
said
answer,
that.
Leo. You know the answer. At the end of the day, Devin being boring is not why he can't get the fight, bro. It's none of the bullshit. Like, I'm gonna say that this generation is a generation of cowards because you gotta say sucker shit like that's some coward shit, bro. Like, what are you talking about? That's not why they don't want to fight him. You know why they don't want to fight him. You know why. Underneath all the bullshit you trying to convince the world of, you can't even convince yourself of that. You know why they don't want to fight him. I know why they don't want to fight him.
It goes back to that point I always bring up on here. A lot of this generation, they don't crave the combat. They don't
Nope.
crave the competition.
Nope.
They don't even acknowledge the fear. Like, oh, I might lose. Let me just ignore it.
Nope.
I think that's what a lot of it has to do with is they're fearful because now they've convinced, the media, the fans have all convinced them that if you don't win, then your career is over. And that is where the difference between older generations of not only boxers, but also boxing fans compared to today's generations. I mean, they want to write somebody off the moment they lose something.
What did Rocky say to Tommy Gunn? You got that fire in you. You got to let it burn and let it out.
But also, it's bitch assness in the sense that, look, it's always been fighters in the past that, man, they don't give a fuck about your record, bro. They don't give a fuck how highly touted you. They don't. It's always been guys that they don't care about that shit, bro. They gonna get it on, and they gonna go in there, and they gonna get it on with you. And this mindset that I see, it's not the Brits that have this problem. It certainly isn't the Russians. It's not the Mexicans. It's not the Mexicans, bro. The Mexicans are still being Mexican with their Mexican boxing, and so is the Argentinians. It's only the Americans that have this bitch ass mindset. It's not nobody else. It's only who we talking about? We talking about Ryan, right? Ryan ain't from Mexico. I don't know, maybe his daddy was or his mom, but he ain't. Javante, he from Baltimore. Need I say more? All right. So this mentality that they're gonna be all nervous about the shit. I don't see the Russian fighters not doing shit because of that mentality. They fighting, bro. They fighting. They want to get it on, and they gonna get it on. Motherfucking, you don't see Artur. You didn't see Artur, in other words, saying, "Well, I'm based in Canada. Why I gotta fight Joe in New York?" You didn't hear peep out of that man. And now he about to fight Anthony in London, Anthony Yard. You don't hear peep out of that man. Let that have been an American fighter.
The wild thing is, we used to have eras where there's fighters that knew they weren't going to be the top guy, weren't going to be a world champion. They just loved to fight, and wanted to be professionals. They loved fighting, and those are the dudes that gave you the fucking hardest night at the office. A dude 30-10, but motherfucker, you had to earn that win.
Yeah, I mean, look at Gaddy and Ward. Gaddy and Ward were not the best fighters of their era, but they were fighters through and through. If they wasn't nothing else, they was fucking fighters, bro. And they gave us 3 classics, all right? This idea that you got to be perfect, all of it stems from, and we know where it stems from Floyd. And I don't blame Floyd for the weakness in you. You don't believe in your boxing when your career is like this. Your team doesn't believe, and Floyd is on your team, and he don't believe in you. You could try to explain listen, motherfucker, you don't believe in him. Get the fuck. Who do you really think? That's why you haven't cracked 300,000 bars yet. Because even you don't believe in this butterball. You don't believe in him.
In hindsight, guys like Ward and Gotti, they would have thrived in the 65-70 round era.
Yeah.
And,
there's guys. It's not just boxing. It's anything. If you draw, if you make film, if you make music or beats, a part of you wants to compete when you love what you do. Whereas Ryan don't love what he do, bro. He talking about retiring at 26. Does it sound like he loves what he does? Gervonta, I don't think he has an independent thought in his pea brain. He let Leonard and Floyd do all the talking for him, and he a grown-ass man. You're 27.
Here's a funny thing. Had Shakur signed with Floyd, he would have had that Tank fight already.
Yeah.
Would he?
But
maybe too soon.
No, wait a minute. The question is, would Shakur be the Shakur that's here today signing with Floyd? No. They don't know how to groom fighters. They don't know how to groom fighters.
I only say maybe because he had Jay Prince and Ward in his corner, and they wouldn't let no fuck shit happen.
But who's gonna make the fights happen? The promoter and the network. And we see look at Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu was an active fighter. As soon as he inked the deal with the PBC, he is not fighting for the rest of this year. He's not fighting. So if we're gonna talk about a scenario like that where Shakur decides that he gonna go to Mayweather Promotions instead of Top Rank, he wouldn't be the Shakur that's here today. He wouldn't. He'd be another inactive prospect that needs to fight more. That's what he would be. It's silliness, man. And that whole conversation about belts, it just kills me because it's like a sign of the times almost that it's too many people.
It was stupid, bro. It was the dumbest shit. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard Ezra say. And I've heard some stupid shit, bro. Trust me.
I mean, I heard him say that PBC got a deeper stable than Top Rank. I'm like, lightweight. I'm like, based on
yeah, that was
Rolly. I said, Richard Comey was a
Frank Martin.
Did you see what he did to motherfucking Marines? Did you see it? It's like
bro,
like
listen to this. Devin Haney, and Lomachenko. That's what Top Rank has. That's better than the whole stable in general.
Exactly.
They got two, maybe not Loma anymore, but two guys who are or were pound for pound talents. You telling me Rolly's a pound for pound talent?
I mean, depending on whose list we're talking about, because Roy Jones Jr., he still rates Vasyl Lomachenko as that guy. So it depends on who you ask. But the idea here is common sense. Rolly Romero, or a guy like that, and Isaac Cruz are not of the same ilk as a Vasyl Lomachenko. If you know boxing, that should be obvious. And apparently to some, I'm not going to say no names, it's not obvious enough. Like you must need a PowerPoint presentation. You believe that their stable is deeper because they have Rolly.
But doesn't that say that ultimately that it has to be an agenda? Because nobody who has two brain cells in their brain are going to look, even eye test. I don't care what your personal feelings are, but if you look at the stable of Top Rank and you compare them to the PBC, you literally have to be dumb to think there's any level of competition between them. I mean, you have to be obtuse, or you have to be projecting a brand that you love.
PBC fans are the only fans who don't want to see big fights happen, though. So it starts to make sense when you look at it that way.
Yeah, because remember, who downplayed Crawford versus Spence for the last 4 years? It wasn't me. Was it you guys?
No, they loved the mythical what if match more than the actual fight.
Like they love talking about what Gervonta would do to somebody instead of demanding that he fucking do it. And that, like I always say this, you say a lot about yourself and the way your mind works and the kind of person you are with the shit that you say, that you a bunch of ain't good for nothings if that's how your mind works. You telling me that a hypothetical matchup in your pea-sized brain is better than a real fight? So much so that you're not even demanding a real fight? You don't want Gervonta Davis to get out there and get it on with these people so he could prove that he's as good as you say he is? You don't want that? That says a lot about you, though.
A telltale sign, too, is that when you're having a conversation with somebody about boxing, and when they start bringing up splits and pay-per-views and amount of money, why do you care as a fan? Why do I give a shit how much somebody makes? I don't care if they give Terrence Crawford $10 and a lollipop. I just want to see him get in the goddamn ring. So it doesn't make any sense to me why, as a fan base, you are trying to talk talk your fighters out of fighting based on money. Why do you care? You're not getting any of the money. So what's it have to do with you? Don't you just want to see the fight because you're a fan?
I mean, let's say this because there's something to be said about the purses. And when we talk about purses, at least when I talk about purses and that conversation and those conversations, it's really just in reference to whether or not a fight will happen, because realistically that does affect whether or not a fight will happen. Like the Joshua Franco Juan Francisco Estrada situation, a winning purse bid of a little over $100,000. Yeah, that fight's not happening. That's not happening, bro. It's not because I care. I'm just saying it's not going to happen. And it's not happening. He's going to give up the WBA. He's going to give it to Joshua Franco. That's the story.
But you're not realistically advocating for a fight or a fighter you want to see not to fight somebody who's a good matchup. Because correct me if I'm wrong. If you're watching a fight, let's just say, and we'll use me and you. We both love Terrence Crawford, right? You know and I know that no matter what, that if he gets in the ring with Spence, you don't care if he gets $500,000 or $50 million. Now you want him to get more money because you root for him. But ultimately, you don't give a shit. If they gets the fight across the line, that's all that matters. Would you ever hypothetically make some sort of situation in your brain or verbally say, nah, he doesn't want to fight. He shouldn't fight. He's only going to get $10 million. Why would you as a fan ever do that?
Because, look, these are not, and I say this all the time, that, you know, you got boxing fans, and then you got, I think it was either Mr. Two Hands or it was New Media that said it. Somebody said it. I didn't coin the phrase. But these are kind of loving hip-hop fans. These are not boxing fans. These are spillover Vlad TV fans, spillover World Star fans. You talk boxing to these guys, and you find out real fucking fast, yo, these motherfuckers don't really watch this shit. You say a couple of names, they don't even know who the fuck they are. It's like, well, you should if you're a boxing fan. So with these guys, the whole thing about Errol, or the whole thing about Gervonta, it has very little to do with competitive sports and combat sports, and it has more to do with a fleeting sense of community or a fleeting sense of pride based on a code that motherfuckers break all the time, because y'all been breaking code. Y'all been off code with Terrence for 4 years. Yeah. You off code with Devin right now. Why you trashing him? That don't even make sense. He's an excellent young fighter. He's an undisputed champion. And what are you doing? What you going to do to him for the next 4 years? What you did to Terrence for the last 4? You're a fucking bozo. Something wrong with you up here. Something wrong with you if that's how your mind work. Because that don't even make sense. What is it about Gervonta you like so much? That he got a bunch of tattoos? What is it? That he talked like he got a speech impediment? They don't, neither one of those two kids come from rich neighborhoods. They both come from modest walks of life, but they made it. They're making good money. But you like one of these guys a lot more than the other, so much so you're willing to trash the other. Why is that? All the other one wants to do is his job. He wants to fight. That's his job. And you don't like that. Same way you didn't like Terrence chasing around Errol. You didn't like. So what would you say if Terrence said the opposite? I don't want to fight Errol. Fuck Errol. What would you say?
Like you just said, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I live here. I live, honestly, probably about 3 miles away from Terrence Crawford. When you say modest, Terrence Crawford came from nothing. A place he lived in Nebraska, where he grew up at, there's no money. There a lot of poverty. So a guy who rose up, right, who did very well, became one of the best boxers in the world. Forget all of that. He's pretty much a pillar of the community. And on top of that, he's
hold on, wait 1 second. Who's going in their glove compartment thinking we want to hear that? I just, because that shit killing me. Go ahead, bro.
The guy's a wonderful father, and he's great with his wife. So why would that not be a guy that you would not want to root for? How could you ever disparage a guy who all he wants to do is be a good representation of boxing in a community? Moreover,
it's simple, right? They trashed him for pursuing Errol for 4 years, and they'll deny it, but we've already seen it, so there's nothing to deny. They trashed him for pursuing Errol. They tried to say, oh, well, he should have signed to the PBC. Hey, Canelo wasn't signed to the PBC, and Errol was calling him out. When he was with Golden Boy, Errol had his name all in his mouth, and Jermall Charlo. So by that reckoning, shouldn't those fighters have crossed the street?
But those are different rules for different people, though.
Of
I was
course,
gonna
it's all of course, because this is how these goofy motherfuckers' minds work. And I hate to break the news to you, but that's why nobody gives a fuck about Jamal. That's why Errol has not surpassed Canelo. Canelo in defeat still sells more than Errol in victory. That's why. Because of you goofy motherfuckers. With motherfuckers like y'all for fans, who needs enemies? This shit is crazy. Because I'm
Think
like,
about it, even that. I could even bring up Gennady Gennadievich Golovkin. He's more popular in this country than Errol.
yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact. He's been in bigger fights than Errol by far and wide. Errol, I don't know that Errol will ever sell 1 million pay-per-view buys or be a part of a fight that sells. I don't know that that's ever going to happen. But I know that Gennady did it 2 times. Could be 3 very soon.
Gennady
because
came to
Errol
this
just has
country.
no endorsement game.
Yeah, that was just my point. Gennady came to this.
Jordan
Gennady,
Beats by Dre, iPhone, and in another country, Samsung.
And he didn't get those till he came to this country.
It's almost like if you're willing to go in there and put everything on the line and potentially lose, but show a good fight, fans are going to respect you, win or lose. What does that say? That's kind of weird, isn't it?
It's weird that hard work pays off, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's weird that they think he's following. They think that this is Floyd's blueprint. And once again, this is how I know you goofy bastards don't watch boxing, or you didn't, because Floyd didn't come up that way. Floyd fought everybody he had to fight to get attention so he could get Oscar in the ring. He fought everybody. Floyd didn't get the Oscar fight not fighting motherfuckers. He fought everybody he had to fight to get Oscar in the ring. Like, you gonna give me this fight. You gonna give it to me. All right? But they think Javante going off of Floyd blueprint. Bro, that's not what happened with Floyd, bro.
But that's more like Pretty Boy when he went up the ranks. All these guys want to be Money Mayweather without being the Pretty Boy. That's the issue.
All these guys want something for nothing.
That's my point. They don't want to have to go through the fire to get the end. Because no matter what you think, look, I don't like Floyd Mayweather. I really generally am not a big fan of his. I know he's a great boxer, but as a human being, doesn't really appeal to me. But I do respect the fact that the guy was willing to go through everything, become one of the greatest boxers of all time, and then he got what he earned. The point is that now when you watch these guys, they don't want to go through what he had to do. They don't.
The same as Manny. The same as Manny. Like, I'm not a Pacquiao fan, but do I respect? Hell yeah, bro. Look at the people he fought. Look at what he came back from. Marquez damn near killed him.
Yeah. The thing is, though, was ultimately Oscar De La Hoya became Golden Boy because he went through the fire. And then he enjoyed everything after the fact. These guys don't understand. There's years and years and years of hard work, gaining belts, gaining fans, endorsements before you can start calling the shots. And they don't want to do that. They want Earl Spence to be a guy doing a million pay-per-views without having to prove anything. It's never going to happen. It's not going to happen with Tank. It's not going to happen with Wilder. And it's not going to happen with Spence. Those guys are not willing to put in the hard work at all. That's the issue.
It's like when Bernie Sanders, and I'm not going to get political. I'm not going to tell nobody my political affiliate, what political party I'm affiliated with, because that's not the point. Stupid is stupid. And you, as a critical thinker, no matter what political party you've pledged your allegiance to, you need to be able to identify that. When you got a guy like Bernie Sanders saying, yeah, let's do away with college debt. Okay. How do you do that? How do we pay the professors? And because there has to be infrastructure. That's what the belt argument reminds me of. Okay, let's do away with the belts. Chuck them all. Fuck them. What infrastructure are you, Mr. Smart Guy, going to put in place? Because you have to have something to bring all these fighters together. If you have no belts, you threw that out, right? You don't have that to bring them together anymore. It's kind of like the student debt shit. Let's just do away with all student debt. Okay, well, I mean, what about the infrastructure? How does all this different stuff get paid?
But
there's money for war, but there's no money for student debt.
Well, I hate to break the news to everybody, but people are assholes, and war is just as much a part of life as fucking. You better have money for war, unless you want to live in a third world country.
How much money?
I think it's more about domination.
From a third world country, I can second that.
I'm telling you the truth. You need money for war. Sorry. You think you're going to go through this? That's like saying you're going to go through your whole life and never get in a fist fight. What kind of life is that? Because somebody gonna try you. That's for goddamn sure. Somebody will.
especially in an imperialist nation.
I don't know about y'all, but every time I almost got in a fist fight, it was over a broad, and then mad that I'm macking a broad. All my fights have all been over women.
I'm just saying that personally. It's not that I promote it. I don't promote it. I'm saying that's how it is. You got to have money for war unless you want to be a victim of war. You got to have money for it. All right.
Well, if you don't protect your home, someone's going to come for your home. It's like any country. If you're not
The
protecting
war, what is it good for?
Better to be a warrior. Hey, listen. Better to
Absolutely
be a warrior.
nothing.
Listen. Better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Good God, y'all.
He's saying the war song reference. Y'all ain't get it.
No, I got it. That's why I said, what is it? I responded back. I know.
Well, what got us out of the Great Depression was a fucking war.
No, it didn't. What got us out of the war was basically the government forcing the corporations to pay their taxes. That's what it was. It was a welfare system.
No, the modern advancements that we have in the technology that we use today come from German scientists that defected from Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
Is that a lie?
No.
Yeah, they became NATO.
They were pardoned.
Yeah.
They defected. They got amnesty. They defected. They deflected.
They went to Argentina.
We got here. It's a little bit. I view it as childish because this is the nature of human beings in general. Human beings have been at war for as long as they've been alive,
and they always will be.
They always will be. So for you to deny that war. For anyone to deny that, and I'm not condoning it. I wish that there could be peace on Earth. I wish it were possible, but based on human nature, it's humans themselves that make it not possible. It's a part of life. For God's sake, we're all here talking about a combat sport where two guys go to war with each other.
Yeah, we literally love watching every week.
It's a
two guys going to war.
Go back to Rocky IV. Go back to Rocky IV and listen to Apollo's speech about the warrior. It's always going to be that way.
Yeah. So it's never going to be different. That's why when I hear that, I'm like, I would prefer that there would be a way for there to be peace on Earth. Won't happen.
Julius, can I say something?
Go ahead.
About the Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney. Look, if you, Julius, or people on the panel gonna tell me that Gervonta Davis hasn't have a shot in the dark to defeat Devin Haney, you're lying. Gervonta Davis has a shot because Devin Haney has proven he's vulnerable. Again, he is skinny. He doesn't have real power, really. So Gervonta Davis has a shot, but this is how much of a spineless are the guys on the PBC. This fight is close to a 50-50 fight, and the guy said, "No, the odds are too even, so we cannot have this fight."
Yeah, it's too close to even. We don't want to risk anything. It's too close to even. In unison with the operational costs to bring over a quality fighter like a Devin Haney, you cannot pay him the way you pay Isaac Cruz. You cannot pay him the way you pay Rolly Romero because he is a better fighter and he is more accomplished than those fighters. He earns more money than those fighters without you. So you can't hope to make a fight with him, paying him like he's one of your fighters. Yet another reason they don't want to do this fight. And yet another reason why Gervonta Davis being a cash cow of any kind is a mirage. If you can't afford top competition, if you're not providing your opponents with life-altering money, you're not a cash cow. You know, Caleb Plant is not a $10 million fighter, but because Canelo is who he is, he could get that because of Canelo. Charles Martin was not a $7 million fighter, but because AJ was who he was, yeah, I got you. I got that for you, huh? Take that. Now, you paying Rolly, what, $500,000 up front? Isaac Cruz, $500,000 up front. That ain't cash cow money. Motherfuckers make more money fighting Devin than they make fighting you. You can't make it out. You can't make it out.
You have to look at it. My vantage point is what I think their vantage point is this. I think that the way they look at it is that if we run these tank cards and we don't have to gamble a lot, then there's no chance we're going to lose a lot. They're going to take a lot of modest wins over the chance of putting their guy in a superstar spectrum. It's easier for them to fight those guys and say, well, we made $6 million, made $12 million, made whatever it was. We had a modest gate. We had a modest pay-per-view.
Nickel and diamond, bro. Nickel and diamond.
But we're not risking. But there's no risk behind any of it. Everybody already knows. It's like the WWE. You already know almost what the outcome is going to be when Rolly Romero gets in the ring. It's more so a spectacle than anything. It's just an exercise of doing something that's not really truly even boxing. It's just more like an event.
Yeah, and then another consequence of that is another consequence of the belts not mattering is fucking Keith Thurman and Mario Barrios is a pay-per-view. Like that's actually a pay-per-view content if world titles don't matter. Same with Ruiz Ortiz. I don't know if that's pay-per-view.
Because they want to convince people that those fights actually belonged on pay-per-view, when in reality, the only reason they ended up there is because the networks aren't just going to give you that money. We'll give you this, and hopefully you can get the rest on pay-per-view. You get it, you don't get it, that's just your fucking problem. But what we're not going to do is fritter dollars on inflated guarantees. We're not going to do that. So if you want to get paid a certain way, take your chances on pay-per-view. Let's see your fans buy the fight, because we're not going to give you that. That's what the fuck that shit is. Fox stopped spending money on boxing. In case, people have noticed. They stopped spending money on boxing at least a year ago. At least. Ruiz versus fucking Areola being on pay-per-view is a prime example. That fight shouldn't cost you more. What, 2 mil? Maybe less? Because remember, it's Areola. Even if you give Andy $1 million, he's fighting Chris Areola. So it shouldn't be an expensive fight, but it ended up on pay-per-view. Bro, we're not going to give you some crazy ass amount of money. So what we could do, we could give you this, and you could get the rest from your fans. If you have fans, you can get the rest from them. But we're not going to blow money on this bullshit. That's why Charles Martin versus Luis Ortiz ended up on pay-per-view. Bro, I don't care if you used to hold a belt, Gucci belt, black belt, purple belt, pink belt. Nobody cares, bro. We're not going to give you and him $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 million because of some bullshit. You can go on pay-per-view and see if you can't generate it yourself, because we're not just going to give it to you. That's not happening. That's why most of those fights end up on pay-per-view. They're cutting corners, hoping that, let's take our chances on pay-per-view and hopefully some fans will buy it. But who really bought, and I'm very curious, who really bought Ruiz versus Areola? Who really bought Martin versus Ortiz? Who's going to buy Ortiz versus Ruiz? Who's going to buy that? I might. I don't know.
I wear a ski mask every time I watch a PBC fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious that they're trying to change the dynamic of what makes boxing appealing as a sport to watch. At its base, people want to see a good fight, and they want to see good fighters fight other good fighters. It really is that simple. And you want to delineate the line that distinguishes good fighters from bad fighters, and good fighters from great fighters, and great fighters from ATGs. You want to delineate that line because you have an obsession with Gervonta Davis or Ryan Garcia. And to me, that's some sick shit. That's some sick shit. You want to change the entire dynamic and infrastructure and the history and the lineage of boxing because you're fixated on these two guys? What the fuck did they do that you're so enamored with them? What?
Hey, Jules, you said it before. What they like about these dudes has nothing to do with boxing.
It don't. I've been saying it because it doesn't make sense. If I tune into a fight, it's because I want to see two guys beat the shit out of each other. At its base, that's what it is. And what keeps you coming back to the sport is high-level fights like Chocolatito versus Estrada, high-level fights, Lennox Lewis versus Ray Mercer, very competitive, very fun fight to watch. Ray Mercer versus Damiani, Floyd Mayweather versus Chico Corrales. It's these kinds of fights with these kinds of opponents that bring you back. But nobody thinks Rolly is a good boxer. We're gonna pretend that people think Rolly is a good boxer. Who here thinks that? Who anywhere thinks that? Give me it's wild out here. And what coaxed me to do this live was the conversation that me, Eson, and the other dude had earlier. I'm like, yo, is this dude serious? Like, you can't be serious, bro. You do away with the belts. What are you going to put in its place to bring all the fighters together?
Jules, what it is a bunch of cucks. These dudes would literally let Tank and Ryan fuck their girl and watch.
I think so. They strike me as they just strike me as very peculiar individuals that have strange fixations with individual men, not fighters, because if it was fighting you were here for, you'd want him to fight Devin. You know, you'd want him to fight fucking Shakur Stevenson at some point or Vasyl Lomachenko at some point. You can't be a fight fan that advocates against fights. That doesn't even make sense. What the fuck are you a fan of? Shit don't make sense, man. We're going to move on to the next subject. Let's see what the next subject is. The next subject is Garcia versus Benavidez, set to go down this weekend. This is intended to be Danny Garcia's maiden voyage into the junior middleweight division.
Doesn't it feel like that the PBC as a whole, like just you reading that card, sounds like there should be like a going out of business sign? I mean, it's so eerily feels so cheap for some of these fights. I can't even believe it's real hearing these cards, even the one you just said.
No, honestly, yeah. I mean, that's not being real with you, right? By today's standards, it's not bad. But in the greater scheme of things, bro, this is an undercard fight. And this is a prelim, somebody got to get out of town fight, really. That's what it feels like. This is a get out of town fight. Loser has to get out of town. Winner gets to go on and do something bigger. And you know that Danny's not up there for Jermell. You know, like you know that off top. Like maybe Jose Benavidez really wants to test the waters as a junior middleweight. He only has one loss after all, and that's to Terrence Crawford. There's no shame in that. But with Danny, you know that there's angling. You're not really up there for Jermell, and everybody knows that. You're up there waiting for a title to go vacant. And that's what makes it feel cheap. They're like, bro, this dude ain't really up there to take on Mel. He'll get knocked the fuck out. He know that. He up there waiting for Mel. Go ahead.
But even though he is like up there, he's going for like the WBC, I'm guessing, right?
Probably.
But isn't like the interim champion for there like fucking Fundora?
Yes.
And he's the younger fighter, so realistically, the only thing I see after beating Jose Benavidez, if he wins that fight, is a Fundora-sized ass whooping to potentially be like going for a vacant title.
Being real, bro, do you think that Danny, I got a real question for all of y'all. Do y'all really think Danny will fight Sebastian?
If the PBC give enough money, maybe.
The money, but no, here's what's going to happen. We're getting the Keith Thurman rematch at 154.
Bro, I would sooner expect him. I would sooner expect him to fight Keith Thurman again than fight Sebastian Fundora once.
Didn't Keith say he's not moving up to 54 like ever though?
He said that once. You can't take a dude like that at his word, though, can you?
I mean,
not because the way he made it sound like.
But will we be surprised if Mauricio Sulaiman said, "Okay, interim title eliminator Danny and fucking Keith at 54"?
He can't do that because Fundora already got the fucking interim.
Well, you know, Mauricio makes the rules up as he goes, so he could do something.
You know what? You motherfucking right. Because if that ain't the truth, I don't think he could do that. But maybe they could mess with Murtazaliev, or maybe they could mess with because Lara's up there at middleweight. So who's the WBA mandatory?
Madrimov.
Oh, fuck it. Forget it. Forget it.
I think Danny's willing to do. I mean, he feels like the most PBC corporate shill there is. I think Danny has no interest in fighting. I don't think he gives a damn if he wins or lose. I think he's willing, as long as he's going to stay on the payroll and they're going to give him a fight, once every year, and he's going to make $2 or $3 million. He can go back and he can post his bullshit on Instagram. I don't think Danny gives a shit. I think Danny will do whatever the talk.
You know what?
If you listen to Danny's interview, it's clear he doesn't give a shit.
To me, he's just padding his bank account at this point.
I think so too. He's not up there for a belt. He's saying, because he did say that though. He did say that it's his goal to become a 3-weight champion. But being real, I just don't see the path for that to happen. So I'm like, is he saying this shit being for real, or is he just saying some shit that sound good?
Him and Keith are going to fight for the vacant WBC franchise championship.
Wow.
Anybody will say
That
at this
actually
point in
hurt.
time now, just to stay relevant. Danny will say anything. How many of us on the panel have said something to a woman just to get what we want? Oh yeah, baby, I love you. I mean, say whatever you want, man.
Nah, bro, I'm not
that's
gonna
me.
lie. I
That's
lied and I said I like roller coasters just so I could get some pussy. It was
okay.
not
That's my
worth it.
point. So
yeah,
Daniel
but I'm
said
not
what he
mad
wants.
at you over that because you did what you had to do, and I respect that shit. Like sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to get some pussy, and that's just what the fuck it is.
So Danny's
But
gonna say some
Oscar
bullshit
did it.
about wanting to fight for a belt. He don't give a shit about no belt. He just
But
wants
he
to
doesn't care
fight.
about money either. He turned down a career high payday to fight Crawford, so he go fight fucking what's his face that Conor Ben knocked out.
that's true.
But
That is.
again, low risk, low reward. That should be what PBC's tagline is. Here at the PBC, it's low risk for low reward on all of our fights.
Jules,
When
real
you-
quick.
Yeah.
When can we expect your review of Oscar's Lights Out vitamins?
Yo, you know, I might actually buy that shit just to see what it do.
What happened?
He got some fucking. He got some fucking dick pills, bro.
Jules, I heard you got to buy it because you got to reshoot American Gigolo scenes.
Oh shit, yo, I'm not on some real shit just for the fuck of it. If I see that shit at Walmart, I'm gonna record myself buying it.
But that's like a blue pill, right?
It's like a purple pill. It's like a purple pill.
But it's for.
I thought it was nasally ingested.
I hope James Toney getting a cut of the fucking proceeds.
Oh shit! But not being real though, like when I think about it, that makes perfect sense. That Danny's just saying whatever he has to say in the featurette to make the fight feel or seem like it's geared towards something, and when in reality, that might be the only fight that he even has this year. And I don't even know if it's an eliminator of any kind. I don't think it is. Like I don't know if that's a fight that moves him up the ranks, because it doesn't have to be a final eliminator for it to be an eliminator. There's smaller eliminators for regional titles. But I got to look on BoxRec and see, is there any kind of trinket title on the line? And, you know, who's sanctioning this? Like, what is it? Is it WBC fight, WBA fight? Because in truth, he could just be saying whatever the fuck he need to say to make this fight feel like it's about something, when really it ain't about shit, bro. You moved up to 54 to fight a dude from 47 that Crawford beat, who you didn't fight. You didn't fight Crawford. You didn't have time for Crawford, but you got time for Benavidez? Wow.
You know what? He could very well like wish a WBC #1 spot. You know, just like Keith Thurman did.
Yeah, I mean, really. It's just hard to imagine that he could get in position at that weight without having to fight someone, because I know that guys like Lubin and Fundora would love to get him in the ring. They'd love, because they could beat Danny. Danny's not good. I'm sorry, fam, but I say it all the time. His best weight was 40. He didn't do nothing at 47. What's he gonna do at 54? Fight a dude from 47 that lost to Crawford. But Crawford ain't fight nobody. But Danny gets to fight the nobodies that Crawford fought. This shit don't make no sense.
Whenever you watch the career, at least recently with Danny and Keith Thurman, do you ever get the feeling that anything that they're doing has to do with them improving a legacy or building toward a goal?
No.
Realistically?
No, I mean, you don't fight. Look, you don't fight Barrios. Like, just look at how Top Rank does guys, right? Look at the Gabriel Flores situation that we just saw this past week, and they put him in there with a young, hungry guy in Cabrera, and you're not going to see a PBC guy do that, because they're not doing nothing for their legacy, and they're not trying to become sharper. You came back against Barrios, who got knocked out by Davis. Isn't it obvious that you're not really trying to do nothing? There's no statement to be made in that. If he would have went in there, right, and knocked out Barrios, that's still not a statement, because Davis did it first, and he did it at 40. You decisioned him at 47.
So after getting hurt by the first real punch he threw. That, I don't know why people aren't talking about that.
Probably because they didn't watch that fucking fight.
I caught that shit randomly. I was like, oh shit, Barrios punched him in the stomach. I might actually have to watch the rest of this fight.
Yo, listen, they probably like I'm being real. Look, I'm going to tell you the truth. I didn't watch that fight, bro. I haven't even seen the highlights of that shit.
But what does that say? You got to be one of the top diehard boxing fans in the whole entire world. And you just said, you diehard, eat, sleep, drink boxing, said, I didn't watch that fight. If they can't get your money, how are they going to get the average person's money?
That's not cap. That's a serious, because I'll watch. Look, all right, in Canada, right. For example, this is how much of a diehard fan I am. All right, the light flyweight contest in Canada between Mexico's own Yesenia Gomez, Canada's own unbeaten fighter Kim Clavel. I'm watching that shit. I'm excited for that fight. I've been waiting for it. But I can't get out of bed for Thurman versus Barrios, bro. Like, nah, I'm not even going to look for a link for that shit. Fuck that fight, bro. I remember there was wasn't there another
fights like that? I go get pussy.
Wasn't there another card on that day?
Yeah,
there was, right? Like, there was another card, and I remember I watched that card, and then I said, okay, fuck this. I'm going to sleep, bro.
You watched that because that card was where it's supposed to be on free TV. You were not going to be willing to even click a link, let alone pay $50, $80 to watch two guys without a belt that are fighting basically for nothing?
For no reason, bro. Like, you think I'm going to be wrestling with a laggy stream for Keith Thurman versus Mario Barrios?
But somehow beating Barrios gets you a #1 spot. Like, come on now.
Say it again.
I don't know why this belt organization is trying to resuscitate a career and just let nature take its course.
Because they're being paid. Because they're being paid. I think the real question is, why doesn't the WBC get the same heat that the WBA gets? Because it's obvious they're doing the same thing. You're saying that fighting a 140-pound fighter that didn't do shit at welterweight, literally just got knocked out in his last fight, beating him gets you #1 over Virgil and Jaron Ennis, who just fought an Olympian. Thurman gets #1 over them for beating Barrios after 2 years of doing nothing. It's kind of obvious what's going on, ain't it? But they don't get no heat from the Alphabet Commission. They really don't. They never have them under pressure. I don't know what it is. Mauricio just got away with words, I guess, because they don't ride his ass about nothing. And it's kind of obvious, like, dog, how do you justify this?
Money.
I guess. Tim Gallego says, isn't boxing supposed to be about campaigning at one weight class, climbing the ranks to a title? Traditionally it is, but there are people out there that want to change that. I don't know why. It doesn't make the sport more entertaining. For example, if what Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia were doing was skipping the foreplay so that they can fast track their own fight, they would actually have a point that, look, I don't want to fight Devin Haney right now. I want to fight Gervonta next. But in order for them to have a point, it would have to be next. And I don't think it's next. Do any of you think it's next?
You know what's funny though is that the foresight, the unrealistic foresight of them thinking that on the other side of that victory, okay, I'm gonna be a superstar. Okay, and then what?
Yeah,
what are going to be the results of the numbers?
Yeah, because you're going to have to fight the people that you haven't been fighting. It's like they're saying, well, I don't have to fight these other people because I'm prioritizing Gervonta. Okay, let's say you beat Gervonta. What are you going to do after that? Are you going to fight those people now? Probably not. Probably not.
Let's see some continuity. You're going to be great.
All that does put a bigger target on your back. Now it's more than just, a couple of dudes at like 40 and 35 calling your name. I wouldn't even be surprised if welterweight started saying, you know what, Ryan, you're kind of big for 140. Maybe you should come up here.
It might take that fucking long to where he starts looking like a goddamn welterweight to do this.
Julius, for people that say the belts don't matter and they should get rid of the boxing organisms to fight, like it's like do you remember that show Celebrity Deathmatch?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think most of those people want something like that. Celebrity people fighting each other.
I agree, but I agree.
But
I agree.
For all those people that they want to get rid of the belts, look, the WWE, the WWE, professional wrestling, even those guys have belts.
Yeah,
have a bunch of belts. Even those guys, because they want to see guys at the end of the day fight for a belt.
See, at least Roman Reigns, he fought the best. He fought Brock Lesnar for the undisputed WWE Championship.
Yeah, Leonard Ellerby is pallbearer.
See, if he was managed by Al Heyman instead of Paul Heyman, he would have been ducked.
Pretty much. Jose Severino says, "De lo mío, que lo que? Don't let casuals distract you from the fact that Bam Rodriguez has a better resume than Big Charlo," which is true.
The only thing wrong about that sentence was calling him Big Charlo, to be honest.
Word, right? He just Charlo, bro. Ain't nothing big about him or his career. The main shit is this, that they say things without thinking about them, and that's how you can tell that they're coming from an emotional place as opposed to a logical place. That you can't remove boxing's lineage and infrastructure without putting something in its place. Now, if what you're saying is that these organizations have become so corrupt that we need new ones, I'd say that sounds good, except how long will it be before those organizations become corrupt?
15 minutes.
You'll be right back where you started.
Yep.
You don't need to advocate that these organizations be disavowed. You need to advocate that they do their job, because they actually do have a job, and it's a pretty important function, because I reiterate, fighters like Errol Spence would not get the opportunity that he got if not for them ordering the fight. You think Brooke wanted to fight Errol off that ass whooping? No, he forced the fight. That's why they fought.
But what this all is a microcosm of life, because you're talking about destroying structure. I mean, everything you do in your life, if it's from paying taxes, if it's registering your car, if it's getting a speeding ticket, if it's you're buying a house, everything in the world has to have structure. When someone advocates to remove structure, then what the hell do you think is going to happen? I mean, just use boxing as an example. You get rid of all of that. What is the point now? What are people going to be watching for?
I mean, that's literally the argument that I made at the top of the show, that it might seem cool and edgy to say, let's get rid of all the organizations because they're no good. Okay, Mr. Burt Sugar of boxing, Twitter. What are you going to put in their place? How do you bring fighters from Russia, fighters from the UK, fighters from Africa, Central America and South America and North America? What common ground would they have to even fight? You'll hear crickets. Oh, we should make a tournament format. Oh, and if they fight in a tournament, what do they win? We'll have like a trophy. Oh, a trophy. You mean like the belts they already have?
So can that just be maybe a belt?
A belt, right? And you'll be back at square one, because you see, the real problems that boxing has now, and Steve Kim has said this many times, I've brought it up many times, as far as the gripes that we have as consumers, those gripes address the networks more than the alphabets. The networks block fights with their special interests. I propose they develop a bartering system where they evaluate the financial value of two separate fights and say, okay, I'll give you this one if you give me that one, so that we can keep big fights happening in the sport. That's the only fair way to do it. Probably won't happen, but that's the most fair way to do it. Whereas getting rid of all the belts would literally hurt the sport, because now, how are you supposed to bring thousands of welterweights to the table to fight? What would they be fighting for? What?
That is what you are describing. That is an unlikely scenario, because for that to make sense, financial sense, be sustainable to the pass of time, should require to every promotional company have a similar grooming process, that the talent pool and the competitiveness of the fighters will be the same. But if you do that, for example, between the PBC and Top Rank, we probably see Top Rank beating PBC fighters all day. So for them, it doesn't make sense.
Well, let's say this. If that were to become the model, for example, it wouldn't be about my fighter winning the fight. It would be about the money I get to make from the show. That's what I'm getting at, which is really the best way to do it. It's not about my guy has to beat your guy. It's about doing this fight yields a profit, a financial profit. And if you let me do this fight, I get to make a profit. If I send you my guy, whether my guy wins or my guy loses, you get to make a profit from the show. Whereas now it's silly. It is the way that you're describing that. Well, the PBC doesn't want their brand taking a hit, by having, their fighters fight other people's fighters. They know underneath it all, these guys stand a very good chance of losing. They know that. That's why the first thing that Floyd said, even though Shakur hasn't even moved up the lightweight yet, he need to fight Devin. Leave Javante alone. Now let me read this. Let me read the super chat. I think the belt organization, PBC, etc., are ready to be cashed out on Thurman sacrificing the ponytail. That's got to mean something that he cut that fucking shit. Tim Gallego said, "Why would anyone assume casual fight fans would think Charlo is better than Bam?" I have no idea. He doesn't look like a better boxer than Bam. He doesn't. I'm like, just understanding boxing. This is going to sound like a hot take, but when you think about it, it'll register. Jamal Charlo doesn't do anything better than Bam. Boxing-wise, no, you don't do anything better than Bam. What? Think about it. What?
Well, I mean, in his defense, he's better at putting tattoos on his body.
Oh, that's got to count. That's got to count for something. Boxing Jim says, definitely appreciate the quality of the edits and the drive. Much respect. I appreciate your breakdowns, Boxing Gems. I know all about you. And so does Tim Bradley. He's mentioned you a couple of times. It's like, it has to be about doing the show. For that kind of a system, a bartering system, like let's say me and Reyes or me and Villain, we're two separate promoters and we developed this bartering system. The end game is being able to do shows that attract fans that yield a profit. It's not necessarily that my fighter has to beat Villain's fighter or Villain's fighter has to beat my fighter, so much as developing a system that keeps the money flowing, because fights that need to happen do happen, and these are the fights that yield a profit. The idea is to keep the money going. It's not necessarily about the individual fighter, and I think that Top Rank understands this more than other outfits, which is why they're willing to put their fighters in sink or swim situations. Sean says, Garcia versus Davis is the final eliminator for a Jake Paul bout. I mean, that's a big fight. I'd pay to see that. I'd buy that for $1. But yeah, that's why I think a bartering system would be best, because what do the promoters really want to do by putting on shows? Make money. And how do you make money? Putting on fights that people are willing to pay to see. That's how you make money. Derek Chisora is a money maker. I know he's not Floyd or Anthony Joshua, but he's a money maker. Why? He fights in fights that people want to see. And the end game for a promoter isn't so much the fighter always winning, but making money, doing shows that make money. So you say, we'll send you Tevin Farmer and you can pay him what you want to pay him. If you send us Charlo, bet. So we'll do Charlo versus Andre. You can do Farmer versus Davis. On your end of things, easy peasy lemon squeezy. And we both get to put on fights that, win or lose, are going to make us money because people want to see them. You know what I mean? Because what's happening now is fights that need to happen don't happen, and shit show fights that lose money are what ends up happening in place of fights that people want to see. Charlo versus Andre, or they did. I don't know about anymore, but they did. And there was a time when you could have turned over a profit with that fight. There was a time when you could have turned over a profit with Charlo versus Jacobs. There was a time. Operational costs have to be realistic. Fighters' purses have to be based on the market value of the fight, not your fucking ego, not what your manager told you. It has to be based on the market value of the fight. Or you know what? Go somewhere else, bro. You don't want to fight. We don't have nothing for you.
I think a lot too that they're missing out on is it used to be back in the day you would see fights would marinate a lot longer. Well, this was also for the most part, pre-internet, pre-instantaneous gratification. People don't have the same willingness to wait anymore because there's so many other options they have. That's why, I'm listening to this podcast and they talk about how Seinfeld used to have like 17 million viewers and they were like the 43rd rated show. Now there's so many shows on Hulu and Amazon, all this stuff. You get like 4 million and people are like, oh, it's a success. The thing is, you marinate these fights too long, there's not a buildup because there's so much stuff that people can go out and they can consume. So when you have a fight that sits on the sideline for 4 or 5 years, you don't have the window to make money on it anymore because people have moved on.
Yeah, like that's a good point. the Maypac fight had about a 5-year marination process, but that seems like a very different era than this one, because in this era, well, you know what? If Charlo and Andre never fight, I still get Chocolatito versus Estrada, you know? I still get that. I still get Usyk versus Joshua. I still got Shakur Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez. I'm not going to live and die because Charlo and Andre didn't fight, in other words. I have alternatives. And that speaks to this impulse era that, for the most part, was raised by the internet, where gratification is instantaneous. You want something on Amazon, you order it, 2 days, it's here. Marinating things now, in other words. You shouldn't do that. You have to strike while the iron is hot, which is what I said about Spence and Crawford a couple of lives ago, that the time for that fight was circa 2018, 2019, when the popularity of the fight and the synergy around the fight was at a fever pitch. Now people are kind of like, well, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. The energy is not the same. People are like, come on, bro. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it. If they're not, they're not. You know, it's the demand isn't high enough anymore. And they did this with Jarrett Hurd versus Jermell Charlo. You know, they had belts at 154 at the time, and you waited too long to do that fight. There was actually a small demand for that fight because he beat the hell out of Lara. You never even fought Lara. So there was some demand for that fight. Marinating fights is not something you want to do in this impulse era of instantaneous gratification, because people are going to forget. These motherfuckers got short memories. They're smoking more weed now than they did back then. Motherfuckers got short memories.
You remember back in the day whenever a new CD would come out, right? And you'd be really, really excited because your favorite artist hadn't had any music out in, say, a year and a half. You're going to run right down to the store. You're going to buy it. You're going to listen to it over and over and over. You can get so much new music nowadays online that, like, when your favorite artist or guy that you like, you're like, well, you know, maybe it's not that important. I buy it right now because I'm getting, like you said, instantaneous gratification. There's so many more products out there that you can consume that if you have this moment in time where people want your product, the ego that you can think, well, we can just, you know, let it sit around. I mean, it's the same thing you hear about when they think about Tank Davis. The guy's 27 years old, and like you said, they always, you know, talk to him like he's a prospect. How many more years does this guy realistically have left to actually get a fight that anyone gives a damn about, realistically?
It's kind of like what's going on with the MCU. They're coming out with so much stuff so fast, you don't even know what to get excited about anymore. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that when they started out. You know, you had the Iron Man movie, and then you wanted to see a second one. The other stuff came gradually. But over time, in this era of instantaneous gratification, it almost dilutes your enthusiasm, how many other options you have. That's happening in boxing. If Andre and Charlo never fight, hey, it ain't the end of the world, bro. There's other fights. If Crawford and Spence never fight, yes, it's an indictment on the sport. Yes, it's a black eye on American boxing. But at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. There's other fights that I'll be excited about. There are, like Bam Rodriguez versus the winner of Sonny Edwards versus Julio Cesar Martinez. There's other fights, bro. You motherfuckers think you are too important, and somebody needs to tell you, no, you're not. If you don't fight, you think people are going to stop watching boxing?
It almost feels like what's going on right now in America. There's such a high level of inflation that there are so many products out there, i.e. if they're fights. I mean, you also have other combat sports. You have people watching UFC. You have access to watch so many other different sporting events, mini series and stuff. The thing is that when I see like people at the PBC, and especially Leonard, just the arrogance, like what do you think that you're selling with these shitty fights with Tank, that people are sitting on their edge of their seats and they can't wait to see another fight against an average opponent? It's pathetic to just like watching it.
Well, it's like celebrating a personal best. Like, and I don't want to be that guy, but it's like when I saw Wilder on the bench. I think he had like 220 something on the bar. Wilder's 6'7". When I saw that, I laughed. And that's kind of like what Leonard is doing, in the sense that you're celebrating a personal best. You know that, yeah, he is turning over a profit with Gervonta, for what it's worth. He is, because the operational costs of the fight are low. And that's good for you. But in the greater scheme of things, you ain't doing no major shit. What do you do, like 2 shows a year? And you gonna talk shit to the Eddie Hearn guy that's doing like 16, however many shows in however many fucking countries, and you really think that because you do 2 shows a year that you can talk shit to this guy? You're deluded.
But he does.
Yeah,
Because
they sell 30 different versions. They sell 30 different versions of the same dick pill.
How defensive does Leonard get on Twitter when people attack him? He comes across with an arrogance like, I can't believe people will be attacking me. We're putting out this great product. Yeah, it is. It's like a personal best. There are so many other people out there and so many other promoters that are doing so much better. I mean, when they make fun of like The Zone, which is a multi-billion-dollar operation, you're like a lemonade stand outside of Walmart. I mean, ain't nobody giving
not even, bro.
For a perspective,
outside the corner store.
For a perspective,
I was gonna say he an expensive lemonade stand, to be honest. Like
Frank Warren put on a bigger show this year than any show that Leonard is going to put on. Fury versus White. That was a bigger show than when Frank Warren is putting on a bigger show than you are. That fucking says a lot, bro.
That'll be a bigger show than Leonard will ever put on. I'll say right now, they'll never put on a show that big ever.
Wait a minute. Are you saying Fury White is bigger than Reese Ortiz?
Well, Leonard's not promoting that. All Leonard promotes, this is what I mean. It gets crazy when you think about it, but you have to sit down and look at it. Mayweather Promotions, they don't do Luis Ortiz fights, and they don't do these other. They're not the ones that are doing those other fights. That might either be Samson Lukowicz, Tom Brown. I also think Chino Maidana Promotions is involved because he's going to be fighting Jerwin Ancajas. Fernando Martinez, I think he's going to fight Jerwin Ancajas again. And Fernando is one of Chino Maidana's fighters. They work with several smaller promotional outfits. That's how the PBC works. And one of the outfits is Mayweather Promotions. But Leonard ain't doing a bunch of fucking shows. All you do is Gervonta Davis fights, bro. Isaac Cruz isn't even your fighter. He's with Manny Pacquiao Promotions, helmed by Sean Gibbons. So this is what I mean when I say that, like, yo, Leonard, you deluded, bro. What do you do? 2 shows a year? And both of them are Gervonta Davis fights. It ain't like you doing 16 shows a year. You doing 2. And people really think this guy's on the level. Bro, you're deluded.
Yeah. Leonard gets on Hearn for losing all this bunch of money doing all these shows, but like what Leonard has is basically a Wendy's like shift like at 3 a.m. Like ain't nobody there. Ain't that more money to pay for?
Oh shit!
What does Leonard Ellerbe do after Tank Davis is gone? Let's say Tank Davis got in a career-ending accident tomorrow. What's he doing now? He's part of the promotional company, right? Who are they? What's a viable product they have besides Tank Davis?
I'm one of those guys. Remember?
Okay, cool.
Just one of those guys.
I'd love to hear.
Nah, bro. There's just so many of them. I just can't pick one to talk to you about.
Also, I would love to watch them. Can you tell me more about?
You remember when Brian Custer pressed him for just one question? Hey, what do you got? Down the pipe for Mayweather? Ooh, yeah.
So many
what
guys.
You got?
I'm telling you, he literally has, and the mediocrity of it, which is why you always hear me use that word. It's mediocre. You have one guy that you promote. It's one guy. It's not a bunch of guys. It's not a bunch of guys you're pushing. It's literally one guy and 2 fights a year that he has. That's all you have. You can't compare that to doing 16 or 20 or however many shows Matchroom does in however many countries, from Uzbekistan to Spain to Milan to motherfucking the UK to America. You can't compare that. They're even fucking doing shows in Mexico where the cartels are. You can't compare doing 2 Gervonta Davis fights to that. But he's deluded enough that, he'll compare himself. Because he thinks he think that everything PBC is associated with him, when Tom Brown actually does more shows, and most people don't realize this, but when you see the average PBC show, this is what you do. Go to BoxRec, go to the little arrow that shows the promoter, and you're going to see Tom Brown's name there more than anybody else's name. You'll see the name of Tom Brown. If anybody's doing a bunch of shows at the PBC, it's actually Tom Brown. It's not Leonard Ellerbe.
Well, based on the shows they're putting out, I wouldn't be proud to be Tom Brown either. I mean, can you imagine sitting down and have a conversation Yeah, so we're going to be promoting this Andrew Ruiz versus Luis Ortiz fight. And people are going to start asking, I thought Luis Ortiz was dead. Like the old joke, we'll cross him off the list. I mean, these are the fights that you're putting. Oh, and by the way, we're going to put this on pay-per-view, and we expect, probably 14 to 27 people watching it. It's going to be a big deal. I mean, who's putting this on television and actually realistically thinking it's a decent product? Honestly, I'd be humiliated.
Let me read this super chat. Boxing Gems says, "What could Mayweather Promotions' 10-year business plan possibly be?" And the truth is, I don't know, because all of the American amateurs that are really good fighters, they went to Top Rank. That's not even like an anecdote. Literally, Keyshawn Davis, his brother, Torres, all of the good young guys in America that are standout amateurs, the majority of them, they went to Top Rank. Matchroom got one or two of them with Mark Castro and so on and so forth. But yeah, like all the good guys that are intended to carry the banner for an outfit into the next era of boxing, none of them went to Mayweather Promotions. None of them. Literally none of them. So a 10-year plan, I don't think they have one. Not for boxing. Maybe for Mayweather Fitness gyms. Maybe for Girl Collection. But not Mayweather Promotions. Not in boxing. Aside from Gervonta. Who else are you promoting? Who?
And Gervonta's on borrowed time as well, because once Shakur comes up to 35, he's like a T-Rex staring at an asteroid.
Bruh. It's almost like, to me, it's almost over. And I just wonder how it's going to look and when specifically it's going to happen, because there's no way this ends well. You're 27. You are losing more rounds fight by fight. You are getting hit more. Your speech does sound slurred. You don't sound right. There's lots of rumors about what's going on. There's at least two guys that claim to have given Gervonta Davis the business in sparring, at least two now. And I feel so inclined to believe them, because I'm like, look, I don't see a fighter that's getting better. You're supposed to take out a Rolly Romero with ease. That didn't look easy.
That's what I was just going to ask you. If you look at a guy like Rolly, if you put him on a 1 to 10 scale of skills, where do you put Rolly on a 1 to 10 scale?
2, maybe 3.
Okay, so when you have a guy who is fighting a guy like that and not winning a round until he knocks him out, what does that say about your superstar?
It says you better wrap him in bubble wrap. 10 feet of it. It says you better get Floyd on the phone and tell him, hey, tell Shakur and Devin to leave Gervonta alone. When have you ever remembered, in what era of boxing have you ever seen that, bro? Where the guy says, leave my fighter alone.
The point of boxing is for guys to fight each other. And these people are literally trying to stop them from fighting each other.
I don't think it registers with people that Floyd literally made a public statement for two young boxers coming through to leave his fighter alone.
Then why are you in boxing if you don't want to fight?
But even I feel like I haven't gotten it out correctly. That don't you, like, he's literally telling them to leave him alone. Like, yo, leave my boy alone.
It's almost like they're running
leads to him, though. Hold up, but wait. All roads lead to him, though.
Oh, God damn, I forgot about that.
How roads lead to him when you got to tell Tank and when you got to tell Shakur and Devin to leave him alone?
Them roads must be blocked off or something like there's no one.
They're going too fast, Julius. There's a restriction of speed. They have to.
Yeah, bro.
You cannot be.
I feel like once Tank loses, like the Mayweather promotion execs are going to be standing on the ledge of like a skyscraper, like the bankers in 08.
It's not going to be Floyd, because it seems that, Floyd actually has a franchise of fitness gyms that, he can make residual revenue off of that. There's also the strip club and real estate deals that he has. Believe it or not, Floyd might be completely okay if Mayweather Promotions as a boxing outfit were to go under, because he has other endeavors. The question is, what will Leonard do? Because we know Mayweather Promotions is really just Leonard Ellerbe. You think Floyd's sitting around worrying about any of that shit? No.
He's going to work. he's going to work that late shift at Wendy's with like the other gentleman mentioned.
They might
He's
have to
already
put
got
Tank up on stage.
Oh, like, yo, dog, if you really think about what is Mayweather Promotions, who's really the face of Mayweather Promotions? Is it actually Floyd or is it Leonard? It's fucking Leonard, bro. It's not Floyd. Floyd ain't worried about that shit. I could just read his air and his aura to like, yo, Floyd don't really give a fuck about none
Yo,
of this
your
shit.
theory about Floyd not actually knowing anything that's going on with his company is actually fascinating because it actually, like, 99.9% might actually be true.
Think about it. Floyd probably makes more money off real estate than he makes off Gervonta Davis. Probably. I wouldn't, because he has a couple of skyscrapers, and it was brought to my attention by Cat. Shout out to Cat. He actually owns property in downtown Manhattan. I'd wager he's probably making more from that than Gervonta Davis's fights, because your fights are not big fights. You have to split the operational costs with the network, whatever it is, 30% or 40% of whatever comes in. You're not turning over a huge profit from this stuff, and he only fights 2 times a year. It's not like he's fucking fighting 3 and 4. He only fights 2 times a year.
Yo, this is what's gonna happen. Leonard Ellerby's gonna take over Filthy Rich Records when Mayweather Promotion goes under.
Probably, but what's he gonna inherit?
Yeah, but didn't Filthy Rich Records like bellied up? Did you forget
They're
that?
gonna bring it back. They're gonna sign AB.
Which AB?
Got
Adrian
ready
Brown?
for that Leonard Ellerby album.
A freaking says, "Ain't no sunshine when Tank's gone." Eddie Hearn can
Only
talk
darkness.
Eddie Hearn can talk about every fighter on his roster and when they are fighting. Compare how many shows he's done this year with Leonard Ellerby's too, and that's the point I'm making. That guy does a lot of interviews. He does a lot of media. And one thing I noticed, which I think is indicative of his work rate, he can tell you about any given fighter on his roster. From the females to the males, he can tell you what they got planned, what's coming down the pipeline. Ellie Scottney, title fight, that's next for her. Ebony Bridges, that. He can tell you all about his fighters. Brian Custer asked Leonard Ellerby, who does approximately 2 shows, well, what else you got going on? No answer. It says it all. The ineptitude, the incompetence. How could you be this incompetent and have an ego this size? How does that happen? Where did you go wrong? Did you start thinking Floyd was successful because of you? It gotta be, to me, it gotta be something like that, because I'm like, I don't understand. Like, what makes you think you know what you're doing? What? Floyd didn't become Floyd because of you. You know that, right? It's because he's a generational talent. I know that a lot of people don't like to hear that, but that's why Floyd was so successful. He was a generational talent with a hell of a work rate. That's why he got to where he got to. He had the kind of talent that you can pull this off. You know, what you're doing, you can pull it off. You're not going to bump into a Floyd. You're not going to spit in the wind and hit a Floyd. And believe me, Gervonta Davis ain't Floyd. He doesn't have his work ethic. Floyd never ballooned in weight between fights. Gervonta looked like he a goddamn 140-pound fighter between fights.
I'm looking at Mayweather Promotions the same way I look at Bad Boy post Biggie. Like
Nah, they had some shits though. They had some shits.
I mean, they're gonna have the. I mean, don't they have Wait. Then I forgot this guy, Frank Martin.
They had Mason Beth out of Harlem.
They had the Lost Still. They had Shine.
Yeah.
But like in terms of longevity, like there's like no one there left. Like it's like it's gonna go belly up eventually. If they don't invest in young talent like in the Olympics, which they don't do, then forget about it.
Virtuoso. No, wait a minute. Here's the worst part. There ain't gonna be no Olympics in 2028.
Yeah.
Not for the boxers.
Not Virtuoso. It's not that. It's, these young dudes don't want to touch that company.
Well, that too. I mean, I think it was the interview that Steve Kim did with Bruce Carrington. I've talked about that he said he fell back. He looked at how his amateur contemporaries, what companies they went to, and how their careers were going to see what direction he wanted to go in. And look at where he went. He went to Top Rank. He didn't go to fucking Mayweather. Why is it that the top American homegrown amateurs like Keyshawn Davis and Bruce Carrington and just these young guys, why didn't they go to Mayweather if he's so fucking smart?
Because I think the sales pitch isn't working anymore. People stop believing into that shit now. Like the
so.
whole Floyd is the shit. It's over. Like I think it stopped working in 2016 to be real. Like after what I heard Shakur said, where he was like, "Oh, I saw what they were like trying to do, and it looked like I wasn't gonna get that much promotion if I was there." I was like, "Yikes! Young fighters are getting smart already. It might be a wrap for you guys in the future."
Well, also Top Rank, Top Rank definitely deserves criticism, but they actually have a track record of producing talent. So, which Mayweather Promotions doesn't.
Well, I mean, look at it from this vantage point. If you're a person looking for a job and you have 2 interviews and you have a lot of talent and you're desirable, you're gonna look at the company that has 1 employee, or you're gonna look at the company that has 25 employees and 3 branches. Who do you really believe is going to give you, just based on that, just even the surface level, is going to give you the best opportunity to grow and become something more in your future?
Yeah, it's kind of obvious, man. I mean, Floyd's whole thing, the sales pitch, which is what they told Wilder at the meeting with DAZN, and I figured that that's what Al tells all of these guys. He brings up Floyd and the money he made. Remember that there was an article that detailed what exactly happened in the boardroom between Deontay Wilder, the DAZN execs, Lou DiBella, and Al Heyman. And an excerpt from the article, based on an anonymous source, said that he whispered in Wilder's ear and he said, "Oh, that's Mayweather camp money." Yeah, I know. You probably tell a lot of these guys about that Mayweather money. And the problem with your formula is he's not Mayweather. He's not a generational talent. In fact, you don't have any generational talent signed to the PBC at this time. Top Rank, they've got a couple guys, man. Lomachenko's a good fighter, but you know what? So is Shakur Stevenson. So is Keyshawn Davis. That's not a LA guy.
Shakur said that one of the things that Floyd did to try to convince him to sign him was like letting him sit in his expensive car. Like, these motherfuckers don't know what they're doing.
Because he think that a lot of these young guys are stupid and you could entice them with shit. Like, bro, car ain't nothing but a toy, first off. He think everybody gonna fall to the floor and grovel because he got bread, but they trying to get their own bread. Sitting in your car don't mean shit to him. Ultimately, he made the right decision because I don't think he would have ended up the way he is now if he would have went over there. He would have probably been an inactive fighter or some shit. They would have fucked it up. That's what I see if he would have went over there. I think I heard something similar about Devin Haney not signing to them too. Something similar.
The way that they're grooming and they're bringing up Shakur is, in my opinion, has just been absolutely perfect. I think Top Rank has done a really good job, pulling him from prospect status into, here shortly, in my opinion, he's going to be a guy who can sell pay-per-views, who is going to be, one of the top 5 best known boxers in the game. And Top Rank has a lot. I mean, obviously his skill set has a lot to do with that, but the way they've been bringing him up ever slowly but surely has been really great, in my opinion.
I wouldn't be surprised if, just beyond Gervonta Davis, I mean, unless they sign somebody within the next, I don't know, couple of years, but I really don't see who they have. Like even Errol has a prospect. He's got fucking Frank Martin, right? But what does Mayweather Promotions have? I don't know, man. Outside of Tank, I don't know.
You know who Lorenzo Simpson is signed to or not?
Lorenzo Truck Simpson, ain't he with Matchroom? That's where I seen him.
All right, then never mind. Yeah, so I thought he was like some close to like PBC area or something.
I don't know, not because when I seen Truck, it was on the Matchroom show. That's where I seen him. I don't know if he went to the PBC, but I know when I've seen him fight, it was a Matchroom show. So I'm gonna say, yeah, he probably with Matchroom or something going on because I never seen him on no PBC show. Like, what the fuck they gonna do if Tank step on the Lego, bro? What are they gonna do? Leonard gonna get in there and fight? Tony Boswell says, shout out to Ring IQ in the chat. Stopped in to show support. Hit the like button. Appreciate that, bro. But y'all, I don't know what the fuck they gonna do, man.
Yeah, I think they might put a fake mustache on Leonard Ellerby.
They gonna have to do that Ellerby versus Hearn fight if something happened to Gervonta. They gonna have to, because I'm like, I don't really know what y'all got lined up for the future. Everybody else, if you pay attention, Everybody else has their future lined up. Sky Sports, they got a whole bunch of prospects, couple of Olympians, some girls, some guys. They got plenty for the future. Matchroom has plenty for the future. They just fucking signed a medalist today, and that girl from Brazil. And they got a couple of guys. They got Bam. They got Pacheco.
She looked legit.
She's
Yo,
legitimate.
Bellum is more prepared for the future than Mayweather Promotions. That's like one of the most insane things. They just came out.
Well, it's funny that people say their business model is successful, and they're like starting to like expand to Australia, and not only that, but like Boxer has basically taken their business model and applied it to the UK to try and be successful.
Yeah,
They conflate the two. They say they criticize the zone for their shortcomings and think that's Matchroom when it's the opposite. Matchroom's successful.
yeah. Matchroom.
Wait, do any of you guys? Oh,
No, go
do
ahead,
any of you guys know who Kermel Moton is? Someone put that in the chat and said that's a kid that they have who's a potential star. I've never heard that name before.
What's his name?
Anyone? Kermel Moton?
I don't know. I'm gonna be real. Boxing Combat. I watch a lot of boxing, and I ain't never heard of that man. I ain't heard nothing.
Mayweather Promotions prospect Ben Dover. Have you heard of him?
No.
First, last name Dover, first name Ben. Ben Dover. Nah, I'm gonna be real. I never even fucking heard of that guy. Like, at least with Rolly, the funniest shit with Rolly, I heard about Rolly mad times before I actually saw him fight. Yeah, this kid Rolly, man. This kid Rolly, man. This kid Rolly, man.
Yeah.
When I seen that shit, I was like, y'all gotta be playing, man. This is not the motherfucker y'all was talking about.
I heard of him from like a
sense that they signed
Motivedia
him.
video. I heard him from a Motivedia video, and he looked like the coolest shit ever. I was like, "Oh shit, you about to beat up Ryan?" Okay. And then I saw his fight with Marinas, and I was like, "Oh, damn!" Like,
But
maybe you should put him back under the stairs.
It makes sense that they couldn't sign, like they couldn't convince Shakur, but like you could jingle keys in Rolly's face and make him sign anything.
Yeah, Boxing Gems exactly. Top Rank has Shakur, they got Keisha, they got Shushu, Duke, Abdullah Mason, Tiger Johnson, Jahi Tucker. They got all the fly young guys from the amateurs, right? So the Olympics not happening in 28, it's not even really going to affect them. And the reason I bring up the Olympics is, that's your opportunity to pick up blue chip prospects fresh out of the amateurs. You got to be on it, but that's your opportunity to add something to your stable. Well, looks like you won't have that opportunity the next Olympic cycle because both boxing and weightlifting have been taken out of the next Olympics. That's fucked up too.
Just as an aside, hold on. Just as an aside, Mayweather Promotions website doesn't even work.
Don't make me go there.
Oh, I did go there already. I want to see if I could get some merch or something for like a video or like a joke, and then just couldn't find shit.
Oh shit!
Maybe-
Let me.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Leo.
Why is the reason that is no boxing in the Olympics?
Corruption in AIBA was the reason that got them in hot water. That's at least what I remember about the story. That AIBA was being investigated. Something about corruption. They had to straighten up their act or something like that. I mean, I think there's still time because we're talking about Olympics that are supposed to go down in 2028. I find it hard to believe that they can't reconcile all of this, but that's the story. Corruption is the reason. Corruption in AIBA is the reason that there may not be boxing in the next Olympics.
I don't know, bro. I heard some wild shit about like AIBA's president and everything. Like the U.S. was investigating him for like cocaine trafficking or something like that.
Not everybody's moving coke these days.
He was with that dude on the Top Rank card.
You talking about Daniel Kinahan? All right.
Literally the president of AIBA.
Boxing Combat says Lou DiBella just signed a kid, Yoel Angeloni, 104 amateur record, fought on the Haney Cambosos undercard. Well, if Lou has that guy, that's good for Lou. But Lou DiBella Entertainment is not Mayweather Promotions. And what we are talking about is what does Mayweather Promotions have to carry their flag into the next generation of boxing? Because it doesn't seem like they have very much. Being real with you, like not, and the other thing is, not every blue chip prospect fresh out of the amateurs pans out. Josh Kelly is a perfect example of that. Yeah, he's a great amateur. Yeah, all that cool shit. But how's his pro career going though? I'm not saying it's going bad, but it's not what people thought when he first went pro. It's not, you know. Remember when Floyd fired Ellerby? He was on Twitter talking about God every hour. Tell me. Oh shit! I'm gonna shoot you the link, Combat.
I'm probably gonna get off, so I'll see the panel another time later.
Yeah, I'm gonna be live for Garcia versus Benavidez just in case some wild shit happens. I'm gonna be live for that shit. All right, y'all, give me a second. Give me a second. All right, get ahead, Boxing Combat. You cook.
Yeah, so Mayweather Promotions website don't work. That's funny as hell, yo. So yeah, if Tank happened to lose, I think Floyd Mayweather is gonna pretty much protect this guy. I don't see Floyd allowing that to happen. But the day Tank lose, that's like the Lehman Brothers filing for bankruptcy again. Like we got to be honest. We like I don't know, but
not because you know what the shit is, Combat. I think Floyd would probably be alright because he doing other shit. I feel like Floyd left Mayweather Promotions to Leonard, and that's really his day job. Floyd is doing other shit. Like, I don't think he micromanaged them guys, to be real with you. So I'm like, well, if Javante lose, yeah, it's bad for the brand, but Floyd will be all right. It's Leonard that is really going to be fucked up. Because what you going to do now? You only do 2 shows a year.
I don't want to get conspiracy theory-ish, but I just popped in my brain. Is there any chance that to salvage Tank, if they see any huge deficiencies in his fighting, that they would be willing to literally like pay dudes to take a dive? I mean, because the quality of some of the fighters they're having, are they going to give a guy, we'll give you 150K if you get knocked out in the 6th or something? I mean,
it's boxing, bro. Motherfuckers have taken dives before. I'm sure they're taking dives now. It's boxing, bro. It does happen.
Yeah. But I mean, to save a whole entire promotional company, I mean, it wouldn't.
Well, think about it. Think about it in terms of money, right? Let's say Tank gets you, and this is raw numbers. I don't really know what the profit margin is from Tank's fights, but let's just say Tank gets you a profit of $5 million a fight. Well, do you want to lose that $5 million profit when you can just pay a guy $250,000 to take a dive?
Of course not.
So when you look at it in terms of raw numbers, yeah, if you got to pay a guy, you got to fucking pay the guy. Like, hey, Michelle Rivera, you better take a dive in the 7th. You better. Gotta get this money.
Ellerby might have to go get a CDL if Tank loses anytime soon.
Yeah. If Tank lose, man, Floyd Mayweather, shit, he's gonna be heartbroken as fuck. I don't think Floyd will ever be the same.
Nah, because I'm gonna tell you what, I don't think Floyd cared about Javante like that, and I'm just being honest. Look, just yesterday, Javante posted. He posted a tweet that it sounded like he was complaining again, and then he deleted the shit again. It was either yesterday or the day before, and I'm like, he must have been talking about Floyd. He must have been. You know what I mean?
Do you remember what it said?
It said, and tell dude to stop. What did he say? Tell the dude to stop talking for me. It was like that. Tell the dude to stop talking for me. And I'm like, well, who just said for Tank? Who just said for Devin and Shakur to leave Tank alone? Floyd said that. That wasn't Leonard that said that. That was Floyd. Leonard said all roads lead to Tank. Floyd said the opposite. He said, nah, tell Shakur and Devin to fight each other and leave Tank alone and let Tank do his thing. So I'm like, maybe he was talking about Floyd.
I think Floyd has convinced Tank to do what he did, or what some people assumed he did. I think Floyd was like, hey, Tank, listen, you're 23 years old. We're going to wait Lomachenko out because it's a risky fight now for less money. But if you wait till Lomachenko is like 55 years old, it's a less risky fight, but for even more money, Tank. What you think? And then, I think, yeah. He
did say that to the world, though, so we don't have to speculate. Like, we don't have to assume. Yeah. Floyd did say that to the world, like, well, Vasyl Lomachenko is this age and Tank is this age. We not in no rush. So he kind of already he kind of gave it away that those are probably the conversations that he's had with Tank in the past, but it's just that we're not in the Lomachenko era anymore. You know what I mean? We're entering what could be the Devin Haney era, or what could end up being the Shakur. That's the era that I feel that I'm like, yo, the young guys are here, bro. The young guys, they're here. Shakur is here, Devin is here, Keyshawn coming through, Shushu coming through. The young guys is here. It's not this Loma, that Loma, and nothing against Loma, because I like Loma, right? But I do feel like the dude's in his mid-30s, man. How much longer does he have?
But
You know, how much?
with all due respect, there's always going to be somebody who's coming up behind. So to sell the idea to a guy that, hey, wait this one specific guy out and we can make this money, man, there's always going to be somebody like behind who's going to come up. So you're going to run into the same problem regardless if you wait Loma or not. I don't just think they want this dude to lose his L. I think they're all just deathly afraid that if he loses his L, then the bag goes away. And I think Tank feels the same way, to be brutally honest. I don't think he wants to lose
because they're idolizing Floyd's thinking that everybody can do what Floyd did. And it's like, I don't know how you could use a formula like that. And that looks like the formula that Floyd is using for Tank. But you know underneath it all, Floyd knows underneath it all, Gervonta Davis ain't him. They not from the same ilk.
But anybody who's got any intelligence would ask themselves, well, this is what Floyd's going to do. The question you should ask is, how many Floyds have there ever been?
That's why I say that the Maypac formula may have worked for Maypac, but that's not going to work for everything. That delaying the fight and marinating, and we're going to bro, that shit doesn't work for everything, because every fight ain't Maypac. For starters, a big part, and I said this in the last couple of videos I did, that you know what, a big part of the reason that Maypac was also a big success is because they beat everybody else. They had common opponents and everything, but they beat everybody else. There was nobody left for them to fight but each other.
And they both cashed the Oscar De La Hoya lottery ticket.
Yeah. If you think about it, at that time, what do you got? You got Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, Kel Brook. These are the guys that they didn't fight, you know? And it's like, well, you know, based on what's out there, yeah, it's time for us to fight, bro, because we fought all the important fights. Keith Thurman was not important in 2014 and 2015. No, neither was Sean Porter or Kel Brook. Nobody was talking about them fighters. They were in the background of Manny and Floyd. Everybody knows that who was watching boxing. So it's like, because they took out the competition and they actually had common opponents, several, at least 4 or 5, yeah, it's time for y'all to fight. You can't apply that formula to every other fight, because every other fight is going to have different circumstances. You can't apply that to you know, like, I don't even think they were applying that to Davis versus Lomachenko. It wasn't about building it. It was just preventing the fight from happening. There's a difference between building a fight and stopping a fight from happening. And the only thing I feel when I think about Lomachenko Davis is they were never building that fight. They just didn't want it to happen.
They don't want the guy to lose so early. Of course not, because there goes the money.
And that's how I feel about the Crawford Spence thing, that you can't say that the last 4 years have been built up for Crawford versus Spence when you had an entire network disavow the existence of Crawford and the WBO title. You like, that's not build up for a fight. And berating him and belittling him, that's not build up for a fight. How the hell are you supposed to sell it if you tell the world that he didn't fight anybody and he's no good, and what he did at 35 and 40, it doesn't matter? You're not building the fight doing that. None of that is build up. You're trying to convince the fans to not ask for the fight. So that's the last 4 years have not been build up. There's a difference between building up a fucking fight and doing what they've been doing. And they ain't been building up fights. Now the Ryan Garcia shit, they're building that. You can see that, yeah, they're building that. Jules, if the fight with Ryan happens, it will arguably be more financial gains than Haney's entire career. Haney has been a money pit, not an investment. Look, I know you like Ryan and Gervonta, J Money. You like one of them, but you're talking about one fight. That's one. You're talking about one fight. And two, it's a fight that isn't about to happen. A lot of things can go wrong. I said this 4 years ago. Wilder and Joshua may never fight. We could argue about what kind of money it woulda, coulda, shoulda made, but they never fought because I said somebody's going to end up losing or both of them are going to end up losing. The heavyweight division, you can't afford to do that at heavyweight. You could lose at any night with any guy that gets through with any punch. Davis, I see a fighter who is not getting better. I see a fighter who is getting worse. And I don't know if it's going to go wrong with one of those guys on his side of the street. But if he loses, there goes the fight.
If the fight doesn't go away, it doesn't have it's not as lucrative to make with one of them losing. That's what.
And more importantly, J Money, you got to hold them people to their word. If Davis is a cash cow, there's no such thing as a money pit. You're a cash cow. You're a superstar. Madonna came to your fight. You should be able to pay a Devin Haney easy. You're a cash cow. Moo.
Wow, Madonna. Charlie Chaplin went to his fight too.
Moo.
It was always a good example with Mike Tyson. When Mike Tyson fought, they could have put the janitor in there. And it was
I feel so bad
50,
for Tank, man.
$60
Like Madonna came to this fight thinking that, oh shit, Tank Davis is the best fighter in the world. The next thing you know, he gets his face boxed in. No celebrities show up to his fight no more. It's gonna be a bad ending, but Floyd been talking like Tank Davis is the number one fighter. He said, I'm so proud of Tank, everybody's calling him out, blah, blah, blah. You got to back it up eventually. So,
I mean,
about the Devin Haney being a money pit. Okay, did PBC made an offer to Devin Haney? Did they lowball him at least?
No, not even that. Not even that. The funny thing is, look, let me say this: it's cognitive dissonance. It's almost, when I see these kinds of conversations, and I'm not joking, I'm not saying it for comedic value, it almost resembles a mental illness. What do I mean? Devin Haney's opponents make more money fighting Devin Haney than Gervonta's opponents make fighting Gervonta. That's a fact. Look at the purses reported to the commissions. They're literally paying. Devin Haney's opponents make more money than Gervonta's. Isaac only got $500,000. Rolly only got $500,000. Fucking Linares got more than that. Jojo Diaz got more than that. George Kambosos got $10 million in Australia. They're pretending that the only way to get money at lightweight is to fight Gervonta. No, it isn't. Fuck told you that. The only reason Lomachenko and Lopez didn't even get the kind of money that it should have made was because it was in the bubble. It was behind closed doors. There was nothing they could do. But if not for that, that fight would have did okay on pay-per-view. I think it would have. It's an illusion, and people want to believe it, which is where it starts to look like a mental illness. Like, you really think that this dude is that dude? Like, he's not, fam. You just listening to what Leonard's saying, and you listening to what Floyd's saying, but look at what else is going on. George made 10 mil, not because he had a big following, because he didn't before he won the belts. He made 10 mil because it was for Undisputed.
You know what you just described? You described a cult. That's how cults operate.
Yeah, it's brainwashing. It's literally brainwashing. Gervonta Davis is not the only game in town. Ryan is making good money, right? For example, Ryan gets paid better than Gervonta Davis's opponents. By himself, just fighting to goes and fucking Fortunas. He made 2 mil from that fight. He doesn't need Gervonta to make 2 mil. 2 mil is not far off from what Gervonta is getting up front. It's not far off. Like, I think Gervonta is making more money than Ryan, but not much more. It's not that wide a gap. So it's like, who really needs him? Now, Ryan chooses to exist in that bubble because he, like Gervonta, doesn't want to deal with what's out there. He doesn't want to have to fight all these other fighters. He just wants it to be about that one fight with Gervonta because he feels he'll get more money in that fight. And maybe he's right. But what, is that your whole career, that you fought Gervonta? That's your whole career?
But I don't think he really I mean, like you said, the guy said he wanted to retire at 25. Anybody who's really chasing legacies is not talking about retiring at 25. That guy just chasing a bag. He doesn't care about who he fights.
He's in the same age group as Shakur, and he said he wants to retire at 26. What does that communicate?
Yeah,
That he doesn't
Ryan's
take
been kind of
boxing very
weird
serious.
lately, though.
Say it again, boxing.
Jules, I don't know if you realize Ryan ain't been kind of weird to y'all lately. Like he been acting kind of strange.
Bro, I'm gonna be real. He been strange to me though.
Yeah, he's been acting kind of off lately. Like I don't understand. That
Nah,
Canelo
I mean,
split
like,
up.
no, he been like that. Like, I don't know nobody. I never met nobody like that. To be real with, I mean, I don't know where in Harlem I would have met nobody like that, or in the Bronx, or in Jersey. Where would I have met somebody like that?
Yeah, I don't know. He's probably sniffing coke with Oscar now. You never
I don't
know.
think he's sniffing coke, man. He's a weird dude, bro. Like, and I'm not saying that shit on some funny shit. Like, nah, that kid is legit weird.
Yeah.
Like, you weird, man. Like you're
He
weird.
He reminds me of the basketball players, the football players who really don't like the sport, but they just have a natural gift. There's dudes that legitimately will just play the game and make a lot of money even though they hate doing it. It's just because they're gifted with it. That's what he strikes me as. A guy who doesn't really care about boxing, but since he's good at it, he's willing to do it.
Kind of like Mikey Garcia, that Mikey never had a love for the sport, but because he was good at it, he did it. But he didn't love it. You know what I mean? Gotta be that, because I'm like, he's just a weird little motherfucker.
If he wants to retire early, he could just fight Regis Prograis or Subriel Matias.
Yeah, he's gonna get hurt bad.
They get packed up real early.
Well, he should press for a big fight then. He should try to get the bag as quick as he can. He needs to build up, make him, 10, 12, $15 million and get out then. If that's what he really wants to do, he should be pushing as hard as he can for a big fight.
Yeah, I mean, like Ryan is not your atypical blue chip prospect, you know? Your atypical blue chip prospect, believe it or not, is more like Shakur. He wants them big fights and he wants those opportunities so he can get the big money. Whereas Ryan wants to play it safe more. And that's just not in keeping, at least not for someone my age, that's not in keeping with what I've seen from fighters in the past. Like, what I see in Shakur now, right, is what I saw in Floyd when he was young. He was calling out Shane and he wanted Oscar and he wanted all the fights. He wanted the guy. That's how Floyd was. That, yeah, I want them big fights. I ain't worried about losing because I believe in myself. I'm not gonna fucking lose. I believe in myself. I don't see a dude in Ryan that believe in himself, bro. So that's why he kind of seemed weird to me. Like, if you believe in your shit, if you love your shit and you good at your shit and you love doing your shit, losing don't even like. Look at Clarissa Shields, right? If you ask her about Savannah Marshall, she don't even talk about losing because she fucking believe, like, whatever's whatever. Hey, she believes in herself. Maybe she gonna get knocked out. Maybe she not. But if you ask her about it, you don't hear no weak shit. Like, yeah, I don't feel like fighting. So, like, huh? What you mean you don't feel like fighting all these people, bro? It's more money out here than just Javante. You could get money fighting Devin. Oh, you're a weird fucking kid, man. It's a lot of
Jules, I'm gonna be honest with you. I always thought that Tank Davis, like if you watch closely, I don't think Tank wants to be an all-time great. I don't think he think he cares about legacy.
I don't think either of them do, to be real with you.
I think he's in for the money. I
think Floyd poisoned Tank's mind because Floyd himself had a love-hate relationship with the sport of boxing in the sense that he was very successful, but he was never beloved. And even now, he's not beloved. Floyd is not a beloved fighter. And just because you made a lot of money doesn't mean you were beloved. They don't remember you the way those Filipinos remember Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao's like a fucking god to them, bro. That whole era of Maypac arguing with them dudes, that shit was insane, bro. Like, dudes really love this dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, shit, I liked it, Floyd, and I picked him to win, but I didn't fucking love him. Like, bro, y'all ready to die on the hill over this man.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, I think Floyd kind of brainwashed Tank. To be honest with you. That's what it looked like, because Tank ain't really been saying much lately.
Well,
he needs to reject the dark side.
I think that Tank, believe it or not, is starting to realize that maybe he doesn't agree with everything that he was told, and at least a part of him, in some part, he doesn't like what's being said about him. I think that, because when he looked over at Rowley at that press conference, I saw embarrassment in him. That, like, he was low-key embarrassed. Like, yo, why am I fighting this goofy motherfucker, man. Like, you not even nice. Why am I fighting you? And then he released that tweet that like, the only reason I'm fighting this goofy motherfucker is because this is the last fight on my contract, which I don't know. Maybe it was a lie. I don't know. But when I seen that press conference, I saw embarrassment on his face. And I'm like, well, what the fuck he got to be embarrassed about?
Julius,
He's fighting Rolly.
Do you know who Floyd Mayweather reminds me in some way? Xerxes.
Xerxes?
Xerxes. The villain from 300.
Oh shit! From 300?
Yeah, like the when he convinced this deformed guy to betray Leonidas.
Yeah.
In some way, it's like, I will give you all the money, all the bitches. Just do what I say and sell your soul.
Oh shit! I agree with that though, because Floyd. See, this is what I think, and this is just me. Floyd is probably telling these young guys, look at everything I did, and they still hate me. They still hate me, even though I fought for all these belts. I beat all these champions. I'm a 5-weight champion, and I'm an unbeaten champion. I don't get credit for anything I ever did. I beat Canelo first. I don't get credit for that. I beat Manny, who was younger than me, and I don't get credit for that. They talk to me about Margarito, but I beat 3 guys that beat Margarito. I beat Cotto. I beat Pacquiao. I beat Shane Mosley. And they still come up to me with the name of Margarito. I think about that, right? And I'm like, Floyd probably is telling these guys, don't worry about legacy, because I have a great legacy and they still hate me.
Yeah.
That's where I think it comes from.
With all due respect,
I'm
though,
gonna be honest
Floyd,
with you.
with all due
Now, go
respect,
ahead.
Floyd created that, though. That's his own fault. He made himself the villain. He did that to make money. So I don't feel
Listen,
sorry
I'm not.
for him.
This is the thing. I'm not saying that I feel sorry for him. I'm trying to understand his mind, because I firmly believe that Floyd has a love-hate relationship with the sport. Remember, Floyd is the same guy that talked about being on the pound for pound with pride, that I'm up there. But at the same time, what he'll tell you now is, my family can't eat legacy. That tell me you got a love-hate relationship with this thing. You love the money you made, and you may love the success that you had, but you wish you were loved like some of these other guys. Right. Why you gonna come at Ali? Why come at Ali, right? Because he's remembered as the GOAT. You want to be remembered as the GOAT, but you're not. Ali's remembered as the GOAT.
But I have to agree with him. Floyd made that Faustian bargain himself.
Yeah. Muhammad didn't sell his soul though for money, and Floyd did. So
in other words, listen, I'm not telling you to feel sorry for Floyd. I'm trying to understand Floyd.
No, I agree with you 100%. But what I'm just saying is, when he's quote unquote selling this to these fighters, and you won't have a brain, which be like, yeah, but man, you did that to yourself. So I don't have to be that guy. Look at someone.
Yeah, but these guys don't think like that. When you're young, right? You have tunnel vision. You trying to get at the money. All you really know about Floyd, because this is the other thing, right? Everybody, like, I talk to plenty of boxers that don't know everything that's going on. Like, because they focus on what they doing. They got to do their shit. They focused on what they doing, not all this other shit. So it's probably a lot of young kids that all they really know about Floyd is he was a wildly financially successful boxer, but they don't know all the other stuff. You know what I mean? Now, we know the other stuff because we're spectators in a spectator sport. We took all of that in. And what I see in Floyd is, yeah, he's probably convincing these young guys to take shortcuts and not do this and not do that. And legacy's not important. Only money matters, because I have a fucking legacy and everybody still hates me. They still try to take away from me. So that's where I think he's coming from. And that's why I think he tells these young guys, man, fuck a legacy. Legacy ain't shit. Go for the money. Not realizing, hey, yo, newsflash, all the big fights and all the big names and all the cash cows, even you, were legacy fighters. All of them. You, Manny, Oscar, Felix, Hopkins, Roy, all the guys that ended up making some real good paper, they was all legacy fighters. Javante is more like a flash in the pan. To me, like, you a flash in the pan. You're not going to be remembered in that same conversation with Duran. I know fucking that. They're not going to remember you like they remember that guy. Or Chavez. Who is going to remember you being like Chavez, bro?
He's got nothing. He's got nobody who's got in the ring would ever make it rememberable. Remember,
Look at what Pretty Boy Floyd did to Gennaro Hernandez. Look at what he did to Angel Manfredi and Chico Corrales. Those were ass whoopings, bro. Ass whoopings.
Yeah.
You not really whoop. Did you whoop Isaac Cruz's ass?
No.
I'm so like even like Floyd. I think he really has a love-hate relationship with boxing. I really think that, and that's why he probably telling these kids, "Oh, fuck a legacy. Legacy ain't shit. Money is everything." Not realizing you don't really get to the big money without the legacy. Your biggest fight of your career that made you the most money in the history of pay-per-views, right? That fight, that was a legacy fight. It was.
But look at it this way: even as when Floyd was a lightweight, junior, junior lightweight, he was building a reputation on facing guys that were a threat to him. And Tank is the exact opposite of that. So how the fuck are you gonna build superstardom off of facing nondescript motherfuckers?
Because I don't
and get to the money. Like you're not even reflecting the numbers.
I don't know.
The thing is that, like he said earlier, like Joe said earlier, whenever you don't really care about a guy, like he said, I don't think that Floyd really cares about Tank. So why are you worried about a dude who is going to build a legacy? All he is employed to you, so you know you're going to get some of the money from the fights that he has. But if you don't have an invested interest emotionally into somebody, then why do you give a damn if he does well or not?
Yeah, like think about it like this also, right? Floyd probably started out with a different relationship with Javante that probably became strained over time, because I heard a story about Floyd getting Javante like a truck. It's something about Floyd giving Javante some money.
Bought him a house. Bought him a house. A Rolex.
Yeah, he tried to take him out of Baltimore.
Yeah, and Javante kind of just fucked it off and did something stupid. And then when you think about Floyd and Floyd's character, right? Just from a working standpoint, never mind all the other shit, but from a working standpoint, this is a dude that was disciplined. He was disciplined. He was a gym rat. We all know that. That was one of the tried and true characteristics of Floyd. Whereas Javante, my guy, you get fat between fights. Everybody know it.
Exactly. You can't instill those qualities of Floyd into Tank. Because
what you think now, Virtuoso? If you Floyd and you see this little butterball, like, fam, why you getting fat between fights? Like, you don't respect your shit. You don't respect your shit. Like, even if he'll defend him to me and you, underneath it all, he, as who he is, he knows this kid is not like me. None of them are, really. They throw my name around a lot, but this kid is not like me because I wasn't getting fat.
When you're calling him the A side, when Floyd is calling him the A side, is basically he's complacent in the fact that, like, okay, I might fight like a bunch of nobody tomato cans, but I'm still getting this bread, over $1 million, and that's all I care about.
Oh, you can't eat legacy? Watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and him defending Javante is more about him defending himself, because that is your fighter after all.
Yeah, his name's tied to it. It says Mayweather Productions, of course, promotions. So of course,
Jules, I'm gonna be honest with you. You know how people say Tank losing affects Floyd? I think Floyd knows deep down in his heart that if Tank lose, it does affect him. That's why he's prevented from happening. Because if he didn't feel that way, you would throw Tank in there with a Regis program. You would throw him in there with Shakur. You wouldn't mind doing it.
I mean, to some degree, it'll affect him. Like, okay, let's say this. I think it would be a stain or viewed as an embarrassment, a bit of an embarrassment, because they all know who groomed him and they all know that this is Mayweather's prize stallion. Financially, I think he would be all right based on the other shit he doing, other shit, right? But yeah, it is embarrassing if he loses. He was panicked at the Barrios fight, saying it's too close. Y'all remember that? He ran to the corner. He was panicked in that fight.
Yeah, you could just tell by his body language. He's like, this shit can't happen. You can't do this. You can't have me tied to this shit.
Yeah, I think once Tank starts to look even more vulnerable, they're finally gonna just feed him to the wolves. And it's gonna be an aesthetic annihilation what happens to him, unfortunately.
If nothing else, like I've been saying, there's a distinct possibility, and I don't say this because I like Ryan, because I don't like Ryan, right? but there's a distinct possibility that Ryan could get him. There's a distinct possibility because he's 23, he's tall, long, and fast. If he develops that jab and he keeps Javante on the outside, you're short and stumpy. You're not close enough to him to get the counter shot off. If he gets better feet, and you're letting him develop because you're marinating this fight. So while this fight isn't happening, Ryan is still fighting in developmental fights against southpaws. He just fucking fought a southpaw, Javier Fortuna. He's probably going to end up fighting Jojo Diaz, another short, stumpy southpaw. Now, granted, these guys aren't the punchers that Javante Davis is, but it's all experience, and you're allowing him to get that experience.
This is just the negative consequences of micromanaging a fighter. Like if you're gonna put him like against continue to put him against no hopers, right? Fight down to his competition, and then you up his competition and finally build up that fight, and you get him to that stage, that big stage. He's gonna crumble.
Because that's legitimately what these promoters are supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be bringing these guys along. That's what Top Rank does so well. Like we've talked about before, is that you'll have a guy, you'll put him in there against a couple of cans, but eventually these prospects have to move along, or what happens? You drop them. They're gone. The thing is
nobody gets coddled at Top Rank. Look at what happened to Gabriel Flores this past weekend, bro.
Yeah. Not even the ring girls didn't even get to sit down, and already he sat on his ass.
Real shit.
But legitimately, you're right. You're absolutely right about Tank. Tank is going to be put in with those complacent fights that they know they really don't have a chance to beat him. You cannot grow and become better if you're always doing the exact same thing over and over. And when they put somebody in there that is elite, which they clearly don't want to do, he's going to get his ass kicked.
Yeah. I could see that. I could see. I forgot who brought it up that he might end up fighting Rayo, in the build-up of the Ryan Garcia fight, and that could end up being a potential banana skin as well. The main thing here is that I feel like Javante's on borrowed time. If they don't get you, Ryan will, or at least he might, because you're literally letting him develop while you marinate the fight, when really the time to get him is now. While he's green and flawed and makes mistakes, the time to fight him is now. But y'all not trying to do that now.
Well,
to your point about moving prospects along, look at what Matchroom has done with Alicia or even Galal Yafai, like moving them at rapid pace.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Javante had the ceiling to be moved rapidly in 2017. I always go back to this. There was a time I thought the world was that kid's oyster, but the matchmaking took a sharp decline after 2017, after the Liam Walsh mandatory title defense for the IBF. That's when you started seeing just these bullshit ass fights. Like, yo, why y'all putting him in here with these guys? He beat Pedraza, bro. You can match him a little tougher than this. Even if, and I said this before, I could have forgiven him not fighting Vasyl Lomachenko if you would have fought the other guys that was around, like Alberto Machado, Jezreel Corrales, Miguel Burchell, Tevin Farmer. I could have forgiven you not fighting one guy the same way I forgive Floyd for not fighting Paul Williams, for example. That don't mean shit to me because Sugar Ray Robinson never fought Charlie Burley. It happens. Like, this is not a comic book. This is not a video game. Everybody don't end up literally fighting everybody unless you fucking Ali. All right? It don't happen that way. So I could have forgiven Tank not fighting Loma if you would have at least fought Alberto Machado. No, you literally stole Machado's belt that he won 9 months before you fought Cuellar. That shit is just wrong. He knocked out Corrales. He the WBA super champion. 9 months later, WBA come out with a super title. They demote Machado, and they let you fight a featherweight at super featherweight, coming off a loss and 2 years of inactivity for a WBA super title. It's despicable. It's disgusting.
Wait, Jules, quick question. That belt that Tank beat Cuellar for, that was a real title?
That was a super title.
It was a Canal Street belt. It's a fake Gucci WBA belt. And that's what they're freaking creating. They're creating this marketing ploy for Tank Davis for some ungodly reason. I don't know why. Because I don't know. Eventually, he's gonna get exposed, man. He doesn't want to fight Taylor for that belt. He doesn't want to fight Haney for that fake ass belt that he has at 135. 130, forget it. It's building up because that's gonna be Shakur's division.
I mean, I hear you, but you also got fighters that time is not on their side either, and Floyd might just start cherry picking Taylor, Pro Gray.
They
Nah,
might keep
the
it.
reason that those fights won't happen is because they involve other promotional outfits, and that mucks up the situation. When you're talking about bringing a fighter over, for example, most people don't realize. I know the number that Alicia's getting. For example, she told me. I'm not going to tell y'all. She's getting a lot of fucking money for that fight, and it takes a lot of money to bring a fighter over. Mayweather don't want to pay Devin, bro. You think they're gonna pay Josh Taylor?
They
No.
can't pay. I don't think they even have the money to pay him if they wanted to.
They can't. Like, she's getting good money for that fucking fight. So that rumor about her getting more money than Michaela, based on the number that she told me, yeah, I think it's true, because that's a lot. That's more than I thought. So, you know what I mean? It take money to pay another fighter that's with another outfit to come to your outfit. For example, look at what Matchroom offered Jose Ramirez to come over for Maurice Hooker. $4 million, bro. He wasn't a $4 million fighter at that time, but they offered him that. So if you want to get Josh Taylor to come to a Mayweather, well, you can't fucking pay him the way you paying Rolly. Nah, come on, B, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, when it came to Devin Haney, Leonard Ellerby, in so many words, said, "I'm fucked up right now."
Basically, I owe you.
Okay,
I owe
okay.
you.
Yeah, I want to say this. I don't think it's the work of the fans to be worried about the future of the fighters. But let's compare a guy like Ryan Garcia, that he has no legacy so far whatsoever, and let's compare him to a guy like this. He's considered the greatest, Muhammad Ali.
Mhm.
Muhammad Ali for everyone. He was loved eventually by everyone, and regarded as the best boxer of all time, the greatest of all time. Look how Muhammad Ali end up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a fighter, if you want to move in a certain way, I'm not gonna be here and say you're a coward, you don't believe in yourself. Maybe I do, but it's your life, it's your career.
No,
be
of
feeling that
course.
way too.
I don't have a problem really with the fighters. My
No,
problem
listen,
is
listen,
always
listen.
going to be with the fans.
I agree
Always
with
gonna be with
everything
the
you're
fans.
saying, Leo. I agree that it's their prerogative. We're powerless to stop them. Like, it's not like we can influence their decision-making process, because here we are complaining about the fights they're having because they keep making them. We don't want them, but they keep making them, right? So I get that. But if I have to call a spade, if I have to say, okay, why he don't want to fight Devin? Because you're protected. Why didn't you fight Lomachenko? Because you're protected. Why is he already telling Shakur to leave you alone? Because you're protected. That's the reason. So it's not, you could keep being protected, feel me? Keep being protected. It's your life, it's your money, it's your career. But if somebody asks me, well, what do you think about it? Or if I'm gonna do a video and I'm gonna say, well, this is what I think. Yo, the reason I don't want you to fight none of them is because you protected.
Okay, to add to,
Yeah, and don't call yourself
to add
three-weight
to my
world champion.
point, okay, Muhammad Ali was, in terms of a boxing career, was a little bit crazy. You didn't have to fight all those guys, all those killers, really, and get that amount of brain damage. Okay, but let's say one every 2 years you fight like a real guy. Let's say, is that too much to ask? It's too much?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But this the other thing. We're using the most extreme example of a legacy fighter that ended up, didn't age well. There's Sugar Ray Leonard. He was a legacy fighter. He's okay. He's okay. He has all his faculties. Roberto Duran, he's okay. Julio Cesar Chavez, he's okay.
Larry Holmes.
He's okay. I understand that you look at a Riddick Bowe and you don't, and I don't want to see that happen to fighters personally. I don't want to see them get to that point, or the point where James Toney, to where you can't even understand what he's saying. I understand that, but I'm just saying that they're using extreme examples to justify extreme cherry picking. I'm not asking you to fight everyone, first of all. I'm saying you're not fighting anyone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
You're not fighting anyone.
So how the fuck are they gonna market themselves? How the fuck are they marketing themselves in this combat sport? Like, you ever heard, like, you've seen that brand Roots of Fights?
Say it again.
Roots of Fight. You know that
Oh yeah,
clothing
Roots of
brand.
Fight. Yeah.
You know how they have like shirts made like after like the Thriller in Manila,
Yeah.
the Rumble in the Jungle. Like what fights are they gonna make? Like what T-shirts or hoodie they're gonna make out of Tank Davis's career?
I don't know Mario
Oh,
Barrios.
man. The Rolly Davis hoodie,
You better
$50.
sell that shit for free.
Rolly and Davis because they hate us. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, that shit don't even rhyme, bro. Like, the Rumble in the
I gotta
Jungle.
pay you what you weigh.
The Thriller in Manila. What rhymes with Barrios? Barrios
Barrios?
versus Davis. I'm ashamed to say this. What the fuck? What am I supposed to say? Like, I don't know,
I gotta
man.
make a buck, so I quack like a duck. I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? Adamana P, I'm fighting Ryan Garcia. Like, there's like the Thriller in Manila, it rhymes. The Rumble in the Jungle, that rhymes. You know what I mean? But I don't, what's his legendary fight? I'm gonna duck all these other dudes so I can fight Leo Santa Cruz.
You know what? I think Don King should just buy the PBC with his SSI checks. Fuck
Yeah,
it.
Don King need to come back and just make these fights happen, man. Because let's be honest, if Don King was how he was back in the day, now we would have been got Lomachenko versus Tank Davis.
Yeah, but the other thing about Don is his reputation was hurt over time, so fighters stopped signing to him. You know, the talent has to come to you for you to make the money off of them, and you know he kind of fell into the background because he has one of the worst reputations in the sport of boxing.
Well, yeah, you're
Yeah,
gonna
he's
get
a
a bad
shyster.
reputation when you're really robbing people. It's kind of
Yeah, like,
Also, personally knowing the shotgun assassin of Malcolm X who got away, yeah, that'll probably hurt your reputation as well.
yeah. Like fighters, people ain't gonna want to deal with you. Networks probably aren't gonna want to touch you after a while. So I mean, that's kind of like what I feel like. That's what led to the demise of Don King because he really was a great promoter, but it came at a price.
I mean, he
I'd
was a
say.
great promoter, besides the stealing money from people, lying, committing crime. Yeah, he was a great guy.
He was awesome. Anyway, gentlemen, on that note, I'm fucking old. It's fucking late. This has been the Late Night Boxing Talks. Shout out to M.A. Bustamante who says shout out Ring 2 for the talk, Stu. My man Tim Gallegos. Social media platforms don't help influence promoters to make fights fans want to see. They're all jock sniffers. That is also true. I've often said this. Social media gives you a false representation of the consumer market that's actually out there because not all the boxing fans are on Twitter. And not all the boxing fans are on YouTube, the ones that actually pay. What you have on YouTube are people who are interested in seeing boxing for free. That's the audience you have on YouTube. But the actual consumer that goes to the fight, no, maybe they're not all on YouTube. Maybe they're not all on Twitter. Maybe some of them are out there in the real world, you know? But, no. Gentlemen, always a pleasure.
Have a good night, man.
Good night, guys.
Peace, guys.